Today, we're going to be talking about some of the most timeless FNAF fan games ever created. Whether they've been around for months or years, these are the games players keep coming back to because they're just as fun today as they were on release. Some of these have truly stood the test of time, so let's get into it.
One of my favorite genres of games is roguelikes. I also, as I'm sure you could have guessed, really like Five Nights at Freddy's games. I've only built a whole career off of it, so I'm sure you could have figured that out. So I bet you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I was told that there was a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was also a roguelike. The moment I learned of this, I downloaded it as fast as I could and started filming videos because I just knew even before playing it that it was going to be getting a Dxtr White video, and here we are now. You guys know what game I'm talking about. You can see the length of this video. I very clearly like this game a lot. So sit back, relax, and join me as we dive into the chaotic world of Too Many Nights. Unlike most FNAF games, Too Many Nights doesn't follow any storyline or the typical FNAF formula. Instead, it acts as an endless minigame that doesn't stop until you fail. Although I'm sure you already knew that considering everyone on Earth has played a roguelike before. At the start of each run, you will get to pick a character, of which there are many. Each character gives you a different set of abilities, with each having a list of pro and cons. You don't start with all of them and will have to gradually unlock them by doing specific tasks. I'll go over them in a bit. After picking a character, you will have to select 3 animatronics to put into the pizzeria. And this is where this game gets brilliant. You get to choose 3 animatronics yourself. The game will never choose them for you, and your initial choices will be random at the start of each run. However, if you really don't like your starting options, you can press R to re-roll your first pick as much as you'd like. As I'm sure you could have guessed, there are several animatronics in Too Many Nights. Each has a unique mechanic, and it will be up to you to plan out which animatronics you bring along, and control how they will be forced to interact with each other. Each animatronic falls into a certain category. You have your door animatronics, your camera animatronics, your mask animatronics, your vent animatronics, your flashlight animatronics, and what I'm going to call your nuisance animatronics. Each of these categories serves its own purpose. And, generally speaking, picking multiple animatronics from the same category will make your gameplay experience easier. Before I really start talking about the characters, I'd like to explain the rest of the experience of a run. To start, after selecting your first 3 animatronics, the run will begin. After completing a night, you will be forced to add 1 new character. Every few nights, you will also be forced to add a penalty. These penalties fall into 2 categories: your general penalties and your character penalties. I'll dive into each of these later as well. After selecting a penalty, you may get the chance to go to the shop and buy some items. Throughout the night, you will gain Faz coins from successfully defending yourself from the animatronics. Once again, I will get into these items later. Keep repeating this process until you eventually die, and boom, that's the gameplay loop of Too Many Nights. Of course, that was a very oversimplified explanation. So now we're going to dive into each of the animatronics, how they work, and to keep it interesting, I'll even throw each character into a tier list so that you can all argue about it in the comments. I'm just going to go down the list that appears on the wiki, and be prepared, there are a lot of animatronics. Editor, I'd say I'm sorry for what you're about to have to do, but that would be a lie. Let's go. Freddy is a camera animatronic, aka my personal least favorite type of animatronic. Freddy will start on stage and make his way towards your right door. All you have to do is occasionally stare at him on the cameras to make him go backwards. I'm sure you can guess why I'm not going to like a majority of these camera animatronics. If he ever reaches your door, he will never leave and you'll be forced to keep it closed for the rest of the night or die. Freddy also has 5 penalties that have the option to be chosen when you have to select a penalty. The first is Mad Freddy, which will make you have to look at Freddy longer to make him go backwards. His second penalty is Branched, which gives him a chance to be able to attack your left door as well. And when you're playing this game, you will very quickly fall into a pattern, so having a character be able to switch up on you like this would very obviously throw you off. Stare Down is another Freddy penalty. This one is horrific. It makes Freddy never move backwards. Staring at him will only stall him. However, to compensate, he moves a lot slower, and the camera doesn't have to be up for you to be able to stall him. Invisifreddy is a penalty that I'm sure you could take a solid guess at what it does. That's right, it makes him fucking invisible. Isn't that great? Sure, a sound cue is added to his movements, but fuck that. That just sounds like AIDS. Finally, we have Nuh-uh, a penalty that's just so silly. When Freddy gets to your door, he will prevent the door from ever closing again throughout the rest of the night. Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't? Yeah, I know. Don't choose this one if you can help it. Overall, I'm not a fan of Freddy, but without penalties, he isn't the worst character in this game, so I'm going to give him a C tier. Bonnie is a door character, aka a character I usually like to pick. Bonnie starts on stage and makes his way to your left door. Once there, a sound cue will play and you'll have to close the door and stare at him on the camera until he goes away. Then you can open the door again. Incredibly easy character, however he does have 3 penalties. Cutting is a penalty that makes both Bonnie and Chica take shorter paths to your doors. Because of how easy both of them are to deal with, this penalty isn't too bad. Quiet steps makes Bonnie and Chica not make sound cues while at your door, so yeah, fuck that. No other words need to be said. And finally, flip side is a penalty that will make Bonnie and Chica swap doors immediately after leaving the first door. Easily the second worst penalty these two have. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, Chica is literally identical to Bonnie, except she attacks the right door instead of the left. And because of this, and how quick I am to pick these two, I'm putting both of them in S tier. Foxy isn't the worst character I've seen, but I did avoid choosing him for a very long time. Foxy will try to leave his stage in the ticket booth. Have your camera on him to stall him. If you don't, he'll charge at your door and bang on it, and make you lose a poop sock full of power. Foxy has 3 penalties and 1 item, which is pretty cool. Insta-Foxy is a penalty that will cause Foxy to instantly start in his last phase at the start of a night. This penalty actually isn't that bad at all, just let him charge right away and it's like the penalty isn't even there anymore. Hen House is a penalty that forces the camera to be up to stall Foxy, which actually is the most cancerous thing I've ever heard of. Haywire is the final penalty, which will make him attack your other door directly after attacking the first door. The only bad part about this is that him banging on your door drains power. And the item that Foxy has is called Good Guy, which makes Foxy not a threat. Looking at him will make him progress, and when he comes to your office, he'll give you a nice little gift like a good boy. Because of how much of a non-issue he is if you balance him properly with the other characters, I'm putting him in B tier. Mangle is a vent animatronic, and she's honestly not that big of a problem. She'll move through the cameras into one of your vents. All you have to do is put your mask on when she's in a vent. She will enter the office for a short period and then leave. I personally hate having to use the mask in this game, so I try my best to avoid characters that force that, but Mangle is probably the easiest of them. Mangle does have 3 penalties. Anger management is a penalty that makes looking at Mangle speed her up. Aggressive Mangle is a penalty that makes Mangle force you to put the mask on for longer. And finally, Slithering In is a penalty that causes looking at Mangle in the vents to make her immediately appear in your office. Overall, I hate the mask mechanic. However, Mangle isn't the worst mask character in the game, so I'm giving her a C tier. Caroline, or the marionette, behaves exactly how you'd expect her to. She's a music box. Hooray! Who could have expected that? If the music box winds down, for the rest of the night she will randomly teleport to a camera with a sound cue at random intervals. You will have to find her and stare at her if you don't want her to kill you. She does, however, have a whopping 6 fucking penalties, so that's just amazing. Let's go over all of them quickly. Winding down makes you have to wind the music box for longer. Moving box makes the music box move to a random camera every time you pull the camera down. AIDS. Muted music makes her not make a sound cue when she teleports to a camera. Show Stealer gives you less time to find her while she's away from the music box. Last Stand is really ass, by the way. When it turns 6 a.m., Caroline will teleport to a random camera, and the night will only end once you find her. Dude, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's just fucking cooked, bro. I can't do nothing about that. And finally, the worst penalty yet, Caroline Carousel, which will make her be away from the music box the entire night. Genuinely, never pick this penalty. Caroline is definitely annoying, but in all honesty, the music box is pretty forgiving until much later nights. So, because of this, I'm only putting her in D tier. Lizzie is the first non-FNAF canon character we'll be talking about. Fun fact, there are a lot of non-canon characters, but I think that's what adds to this game's charm. Lizzie herself isn't actually the threat. She spawns down bitty buds in your office while your camera is up. Simply hold your flashlight on them and they'll disappear. If there are too many, they'll call Lizzie and she will then kill you. Lizzie has 2 different penalties as well. Speedy Bud will make the Bitty Buds call Lizzie to your office faster, and Help Wanted will turn the brightly colored Bitty Buds into dark colored plush Lizzies, which are much harder to see in the very purple office. Lizzie is one of my favorite characters to see in my runs. I love flashlight characters, and I really love office characters, so because of this, I'm giving her S tier. BB is a bitch, but I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. And of course, they gave him the worst mechanic of all time. At random times, he will teleport to a random camera with a sound cue.
Hello?
You will have to find which camera he's on and hold the flashlight on him.
Bye-bye.
If that wasn't bad enough, his penalties make him even worse. Mute BB makes him not make a sound cue, which is actually just fucking torment. Don't pick this. I'm Moving will make him teleport to a second camera after you find him the first time, little asshole. And Aggressive BB will force you to hold the light on him for longer. Literally, fuck that. I'm sure from the tone in my voice, you can tell I really don't like BB, so because of that, I'm obviously giving him an F tier. Sparky the dog is a camera character that makes me piss blood. He's in the storage room and has 4 phases he will move through before appearing in your office and forcing you to put the mask on for a decently long time. To prevent this, all you have to do is stare at him on the cameras, something I've already made clear I'm not a super huge fan of. He also has 3 penalties if your urine wasn't already red enough. Mad Sparky will force you to look at him on the cameras for longer to push him back. Sparky Speedy will make Sparky move faster, obviously. And Aggressive Sparky will make you put the mask on longer if he enters the office. I don't like camera characters. I hate the idea of staring at a character to stop them. D tier. Percy Poodle, yes, from Playtime with Percy, is easily one of the best characters in the game. Being an office flashlight animatronic, all he does is have multiple phases in front of the big office window. He'll start pounding on the glass in his final phase, and you'll then have to hold the flashlight on him to make him go back. He also only has 2 penalties, and both of them really aren't that bad. Aggressive Percy will make him only go back to his last stage the first time you deal with him, but only the first time, so who cares? And Mute Percy makes him make no sound cue when he's pounding on the glass, so just open your eyes and this won't be a problem. Percy is simple. Percy is always an easy pick. S tier. Rowan Rat, on the other hand, is actual fucking torment. At random times, he will appear in any of the 4 corners of the building. When you see him in one, shock him and he'll go away. You will also have the ability to use a radar to detect where he is and where he's going. Oh yeah, and you only have a certain number of shocks, so that's just terrible. He has 4 possible penalties, and all of them are worse than death. Aggressive Rowan gives you less time to shock him. No radar removes the fucking radar, making you constantly have to check all 4 corners yourself. Less shocks obviously gives you less shocks, as the name would suggest. And Invisi-Rowan makes him fucking invisible. Fuck that. Never in a million years am I picking that shitty option. Rowan by himself isn't the worst, but if you get any of his penalties, which will happen eventually, he becomes a nightmare. So I'm putting him in D tier. Maple is almost a good character, but because it's not the only character you'll be up against, it's hard to find it as an attractive pick. At the beginning of each night, it will require you to collect a certain amount of plushies. This number increases with its AI value. You will then have to search around the cameras for these plushies. If you don't find them all before 6 AM, it'll kill you. Amazing mechanic, but again, it's not the only one, so it's really just more of a pain in the ass. It does have 3 penalties. What are those? Well, Early Killer will have it check if you have the plushies at 5 AM rather than 6. Hidden Counter will literally just make it not tell you how many plushies you need to find, which is bullshit. And Restock will add a timer to how fast you need to find the plushies. If you don't find them in time, it'll re-hide all the plushies again, forcing you to find them all in pretty much one go. Again, it's not the worst, but can easily get out of control on later nights when you start to only focus on certain cameras while it has the large plushie counter. So I'm going to give it a C tier. Noelle is another very interesting character that easily has the chance to be forgotten about. When you start the night, a pair of scissors will appear on a random camera. At complete random, Noelle can appear in the office with a sound cue. When it does, you need to find the scissors and click them to make it go away. The scissors will then teleport to another random camera. If you don't click the scissors, it'll force you to put the mask on for a few seconds, which is a long time in this game. Noelle, of course, has 3 penalties. Pull down will make it forcefully pull down the camera when it enters your office, which could honestly be seen as a good thing. Bro, that's not okay. I fucked myself. Having the force pull down from Noelle mixed with the Roby absolutely fucking creamed my ass, dude. Aggressive Noelle is terrible. When it enters your office, if you click any camera aside from the one with the scissors, it will immediately make you put the mask on. And Crazed Teddy will cause it to insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. A certain item does affect Noelle, however. If you have Chill Pill, you will get 4 additional seconds to put the mask on when it attacks you, which is a lot of time in this game. I'm not a huge fan of Noelle, especially not when it has aggressive on, so because of this, I'm going to put it in C tier. Melatonin is a real bitch of a character. It moves around the cameras, but it's invisible when it does. You'll hear it laughing in one of your ears, and on the 3rd laugh, you'll have to close the door of whichever side it's on until you hear it leave. It has 2 penalties that just serve as the salt in the wound as well. Switch Up is easily the worst. Before it moves, you'll have to check the dining room to see a counter for how many laughs it'll have before attacking, now being randomized from 2 to 4. Unplanned only makes its first laugh on the correct side, needing you to remember which side it was originally on. I don't like characters that I can't see. I also find it really hard to keep a timer in your head like you need to do with Melatonin, so because of this, I'm putting it in D tier. Lydia is a dog. She'll be in the ticket booth in a fucking cage where she belongs. When you hear her banging on the cage, you'll have to take her out like Ol Yeller. Just kidding, you actually just have to hold the cage until that dumb mutt shuts up. The wiki, for some reason, doesn't have a page for her, and since I avoided her at all costs, I actually never experienced any of her penalties. But if I had to guess, I'd bet one of them makes you hold her cage for longer, and another makes her not make noise when she's attacking. But going off of how I know her to be with no penalties, I'm going to put her in C tier. Amber is a character that at first didn't seem too bad, but will very quickly become a run killer. She begins at the entrance. At random times, she'll hold up a playing card with a suit on it. You will then have to click the corresponding suit on the cameras or she'll kill you. The 2 penalties she has might actually be the most evil ones in the entire game. Follow Suit will give her the ability to have more than 1 card, and 52 Pickup will make that number of cards she can hold literally be any number, which is so retarded I can't even begin to explain why you shouldn't pick this, so just don't. I thought Amber would be great, but I very quickly started to avoid her whenever I could. C tier. CG is annoying, a nuisance character, but not very hard to deal with unless you get unlucky. She will randomly move around the cameras, and if you look at her on the cameras for too long, she'll make you put the mask on for a really, really long time. Her penalties aren't really the worst, however. Aggressive CG will make you put the mask on for longer, and Insta CG will make her enter your office if you look at her, period, even if only for a fraction of a second. However, a monitor is added to your office showing exactly where she is at all times so that you can easily avoid her. There are much worse nuisance characters, and if you don't have any of her penalties, she really isn't a problem. B tier. Dsam, I'm gonna say Sam, is a character I never once chose throughout my playthrough. You may think that makes me a bad reviewer, but I personally think that makes me someone who values not killing myself. Sam will slowly walk back and forth in front of your window with some sound cues. Before he gets to a door, you will have to close it, making him a character you pretty much always have to be watching. He has 2 penalties. Quiet Sam removes his sound cues, and Invisisam forces you to only use his sound cues. So pick your poison, dumbass, or even better, just don't pick this character. D tier. Roby is torture. I thought he wouldn't be so bad, and let's just say I wasn't so right. He sits in your office with a timer on his eye. When it reaches 0, you must have your mask on or you will die. He has 2 penalties that are all equally terrible. Mute Roby removes the sound cue he makes right before waking up. Awoken Roby makes him stay awake longer, forcing you to put the mask on longer. I'm dead serious. Don't pick this character. He is horrific. F tier. Alexis is simple, but very easy to forget about, especially on later nights. She will randomly wander around the cameras. If you pull the camera down while on the camera she's at, she'll make you put the mask on for a really long time. So you'll have to switch cameras before pulling them down. She also has 3 penalties. Aggressive Alexis makes her act like CG, where looking at her for too long will also make her attack you. Sneaky Ghost will only make her appear on a camera after you look at it for a second. and Crazed Ghost will insta-kill you instead of making you put the mask on. If you are diligent and aren't an idiot, Alexis is not an issue. But because of how fast you'll be switching through cameras on later nights, I can't give her any higher than a B tier. Onion is another character I never choose. When you pull up the cameras, there's a chance he'll be on them and quickly run left or right. You will have to close the corresponding door. If you close both, he'll drain a bunch of power. Again, for some reason he doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know what his penalties are, but just knowing what he does, I'm going to put him in C tier. T Generic is a very annoying character who I only choose if every other character was ass. He will be in the entrance with an arrow on his face. Once he leaves the entrance, he will go to whichever vent he was pointing to, and you'll have to stare at him in that vent until he goes away. If he gets into your office, you'll have to put the mask on for a very long time. He has 3 penalties that somehow make him even more annoying. Crazed Robot will make him insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. How About I Do Anyway will make him enter your office regardless of if you looked at him in the vents or not. However, if you did look at him, you'll have to put the mask on for a shorter amount of time. And Glitched will make T Generic sometimes switch what vent he's going to, making his arrows completely useless. He's a character that breaks the rules and that breaks my balls. D tier. Kaiden acts in much the same way as T Generic. He'll start in the entrance holding a sign with an arrow pointing left or right. Once he leaves with a sound cue, you'll have to close whichever door he was pointing to. He of course has penalties that make him silent and make him go in the opposite direction the sign was pointing to. I've actually picked Kaiden multiple times because if you can avoid his annoying penalties, he's an incredibly easy character to deal with, since you can close both doors when you hear his sound cue for about 2 seconds and not have any additional penalties. A tier. The ink monstrosity is always an immediate pick for me. It starts in your office on the ceiling and slowly creeps down. Hold your flashlight on it to force it back up. The best part is it'll basically teleport all the way back up when you flash the light on him, but that's where his penalties come into play. Stubborn will make you have to hold your light on him, removing the loveliness of this character, but overall still isn't too bad. Head Start will make the ink monstrosity start halfway down in your office and won't be able to go all the way back up to the top. Easily the worst penalty this character has. I love this character, always an immediate choice for me. S tier. Robo Popcakes is a character I initially avoided, but eventually grew to really like picking. At random, he'll spawn on your cameras. Not a specific one, he'll just be an overlay. You will have to match up 2 patterns using the arrows on the overlay, and once you do, he'll disappear. If you don't do it in time, you'll die. This character is always one I liked choosing because of how likely I am to pick characters like Bonnie and Chica, because while I stare at them on the cameras, I can deal with RoboCake, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He has 2 penalties. X = X minus 2 gives you 2 less seconds to align his face, and pop time will only cause time to progress when you complete a Robo Popcakes attack. Overall, even with max penalties, Robo Popcakes isn't a terrible character. A tier. Entity 12 is pure masochism. They'll start in the storage or maintenance and move down your hall. Watch them on the cameras to make it go back. If they get to your office, they'll make you put the mask on for a long ass time. And get this, the 2 penalties they add doesn't make it any better. Aggressive Entity 12 will make you put the mask on for the rest of the fucking night if they gets into your office. And Run Killer will literally start with it inside of your office and it will never leave. Literally fuck that, fuck this character, F tier. Mura is a character I'd highly recommend not picking if you have other characters that don't want you spamming through cameras, because you will have to be doing that a lot with Mira. Mira will be in the kitchen the entire night and will require you to feed her candy. If you don't feed her enough, you'll die. Candy will randomly spawn throughout the cameras, so you'll have to surf through them to click on them. The penalties she adds are brutal. Savory Tooth makes candy spawn less. Small Plate puts a small cap on the amount of candies you can hold at a time. And Sweet and Sour adds sour candies that will remove a candy from your candy counter if you click on them. So if you've been working your muscle memory this whole time and get this penalty, have fun clicking on every single sour one all the time. I'm not a fan of the camera surfing this character brings, and I'd much rather prefer to just ignore picking her. D tier. The Ringmaster is an interesting character. He'll randomly spawn on your cameras. When you see him, you'll have to flip the camera down and greet him in your office. If you switch cameras, he'll make you put the mask on for a long time. Crazed Magician is a penalty that will make clicking off of his camera just instantly kill you. And Masked Magician will make flipping down the camera always make you put the mask on, but for less time than usual. I don't love picking Ringmaster, but I will usually end up choosing him later in a run. B tier. The entity is someone who gives me AIDS. They will randomly spawn on your cameras in 3 locations, except only one of them is actually real. You'll be able to tell because the fakes will be more transparent. Again, for some reason their wiki isn't available, and I never actually chose any of their penalties, so I'm not totally sure what they are. But I hate find them on the camera characters. You guys know that. D tier. No VA is a character I only dealt with once, acting as probably the most nuisance characters of all the nuisance characters. No VA will randomly move around your cameras. You will have to avoid clicking on the camera it's on, or you'll have to put on the mask. On lower AI levels, the camera it's on will be marked with green, making it very easy to see. As the AI goes up, it'll get harder and harder, eventually becoming fucking invisible. And let me tell you, the penalties make it even worse, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Malware makes clicking on no VA's camera kill you instantly. Spamware makes no VA on multiple cameras at a time, and adware creates an adware window on your cameras. If you don't close it fast enough, it will force you to look at no VA's camera. I actually think this character is really cool, and I think that its penalties are actually super interesting. Aside from malware, that one is AIDS. I still don't love picking this character though, because I hate mask characters. So because of this, I'm giving no VA C tier. Moldy is a character that is a really good pick for early game, but late game will easily become a character you will forget about. Whenever you pull down your camera, there's a chance he'll be in your office. If he is, you'll have to hold your light on him for a while, or you'll have to put the mask on. He has 2 penalties. Aggressive Moldy will make you have to shine your light on him for longer, and Crazed Mold will make pulling up the camera while he's in your room instantly kill you. Again, early game, he's amazing, but you will very quickly forget about him once more characters start to get added. So because of this, I'm giving him B tier. Rita Rabbit is thick, but that's not important. What is how she works. She sits on her fat ass in the arcade slowly attempting to leave. All you have to do is hold the flashlight on her to make her go away. Honestly, not that bad of a character if you pair her with other arcade characters, which there is a decent amount of. She has 2 penalties. Aggressive Rita will make you hold your flashlight on her longer, and Cheeky Rabbit will make her move faster the longer you're not looking at her camera. If you know how to stack her with other characters properly, Rita shouldn't be a problem even if you have her penalties. A tier. Coral is another character that I love seeing as an option to pick. Coral will randomly appear at either of your doors with no sound cue, so you'll have to make sure you're paying attention. Simply close the door he's at and he'll knock, letting you know he's left. He has 2 different penalties. Blinding will make you additionally hold the flashlight on him for a while, and making sure will force you to have your camera down while the door is closed in order for him to leave. I love this character, he's super easy to deal with, S tier. Shrimp is another character that just makes me giddy with joy whenever I see her. Shrimp will occasionally spawn some shrimp food in your office on either side. Whichever side it's on is the side you have to close the door of until the shrimp food disappears. The 2 penalties she adds are easily some of the best to deal with. Big Shrimpin' is a penalty that will cause the shrimp food to have the chance to be really big. If it's really big, you just have to close both doors. And Small Shrimpin' gives the food the chance to have the lid off. If it is, all you have to do is close the door to the opposite side of the food. Shrimp is incredibly easy to deal with, she's satisfying to deal with, and she doesn't use the fucking cameras, which I love. Easy S tier. Worm is the next character we have to talk about, and I avoided this guy like the plague. I was very scared of how it was going to work, so I never actually ended up using it. Worm will start in the dining room and go down your right hall and will stay there until you open the door. When you open the door, it'll crawl through your office. Avoid looking at it either by using the mask or looking at the cameras until it leaves. It also has 2 penalties. Snail makes it move across the office slower, and Digger will make Worm add another bar of power usage while it's at your door. Worm just seems like a character that would completely disrupt the flow of the night, and because of that, I'm putting it in D tier. Kyle and Bob are the 2 next assholes I want to talk about, and these guys are weird, and also really shitty and confusing, and I don't fully understand them. Kyle and Bob are 2 separate animatronics, but they work in tandem. Both of them are vent characters. If Kyle, the yellow one, enters your vent, You have to look at him on the camera or he will enter your office and make you use the mask. If Bob is in your vent, you can't look at him on the cameras or he'll enter your office and make you use the mask. The only problem is, I was never able to figure out how to tell which one entered the vent. At first, I thought maybe they'd alternate and I'd have to remember, but then during one run, Kyle attacked twice in a row. So I'm thinking there has to be something I'm misunderstanding about these two. Of course, they each have 2 penalties. Crazed Sun makes them instantly kill you if they enter your office, and Eclipsed will make one of them invisible while the other is in the vent. I tried to like these guys, but because I'm retarded and can't fully figure them out, they were never for me. D tier. Magi is a pretty interesting character. He will consistently walk back and forth in front of your window. At random, he will make a sound cue letting you know he's about to attack.
Come on, go, go.
When he does, you have to close the door to the side he's on, leading to you needing to keep track and remember which side he's on at all times. This isn't too bad for someone like me who tries to be able to stay in the office as much as possible. Magi has 3 penalties. Reach around will change the way his sound cues work. If he says
Surprise,
or
you won't see this one coming.
you will then need to close the door to the opposite side he's on. This can be confusing for obvious reasons. Do It Myself is a penalty that will make Magi attack the opposite door whenever you deal with his puppet the first time. And Invisimagi makes him fucking invisible, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Magi is not my favorite, but I have no problem picking him later in the run when things are getting tight. B tier. Mallory, on the other hand, is torture. She stays in the ticket booth. At random, she will hold up any amount of fingers on one hand. You will then have to flash her with the flashlight that many times. If you flash her too many times or not enough, she will dash at your door 15 times. This is AIDS. And I can't even lie, 15 times? Why so many? Seems a bit overkill, don't you think? But let's talk about her penalties, which she has 3 of. Ambidextrous will make her be able to show you up to 8 fingers. DoorDash will make her charge 20 fucking times instead of 15, and DoorDash EX makes her charge your doors for the entire night. Easily one of the most bullshit characters when you have her penalties on, but if you can avoid choosing them, she's only really ass because her hand is conveniently behind the fucking camera map. D tier. Roy is one of the only camera animatronics I can actually stomach. He starts in the dining room and slowly makes his way to your office. You can lure him to a previous camera by holding your flashlight on them. Since he's a moth, he's attracted to the light. He only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Roy, which will just make you have to hold the light for longer to get him to move. Overall, very solid character, and not too annoying to handle until his AI value gets really high. A tier. Silly is kinda silly. Fuck, editor, cut that out. Silly is my favorite vent animatronic. He moves around the cameras, who gives a fuck? Eventually, he'll enter one of your vents. When he does, all you have to do is hold the flashlight on him before he enters your office and eats your butt. He also only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Silly, which makes you hold the flashlight on him for longer. Very simple character, he makes sound cues, I like sound cues, S tier. Next up, we've got Bop. She's an interesting, ADHD-riddled little fuck. When you pull down the camera, there's a chance she'll be standing in your window. She will then dash towards either of your doors. Simply close that door before she gets to it. She has 3 penalties. Layered Square will make Bop charge your doors multiple times. Bop Spawn will cause Bop to be able to spawn at your window even if the camera is down, and Force Down will make Bop force your camera down if it is up. A character that requires quick reaction time, and when more characters get added can be easily missed. E tier. Venus is a fucking plant. Oh, you want to know what they do? Sure, that's fair enough. Venus will sit in the kitchen the entire night like your mom in the middle of the night looking for more food, even though she ate 65% of dinner that night. Throughout the night, bunnies will spawn in your room and you'll have to click on them to collect them. You then feed these bunnies to Venus in the kitchen camera. Very fucked up, Venus. These bunnies are cute. Venus has a hefty 4 different penalties, actually being one of the highest in the game. Wabbit hunting will make the bunnies in your office jump around, making them harder to click. Except they're still not hard to click, so it's not that bad. Depopulation will make the bunnies spawn less frequently. Wanderer will make Venus randomly move around your cameras instead of camping the kitchen. And Mako will add Venus's friend Mako into your office. If you click on him, you'll die. Venus is very fun to play with. Their mechanic is satisfying, clicking on the bunnies is fun, and even most of their penalties aren't too bad. S tier. Cyrex is the next character we need to talk about, and I absolutely hate her. She starts in the ticket booth and slowly makes her way to your office. Before she gets to your office, you'll have to go to the ticket booth camera and call her to your office manually and then put the mask on. If she gets to your office by herself, I'm assuming you can guess what happens. And if you couldn't have already guessed, her penalties aren't much better. Rising aggression makes her make you put the mask on longer the longer you take to call her to your office. And call tracker will randomize the camera the call button is on every time you use it. This character is Torment. This character is Anguish, F tier. Next we have Ellie, another character so potently AIDS I fear even talking about her. Her goal is to chew the wires in the storage room to cut your power. You will have to watch for her in either hall. When she's in one, you must make sure the door on that side is open and shake a box of snacks on that side of the office to lure her inside of the office. She will leave shortly thereafter. If your office door isn't open when you lure her, she will bang on the door and drain your power. She also has 3 penalties if this didn't already sound terrible enough. Shaker will force you to shake the bag of treats longer. Power Chomper will make Ellie drain more power when she bangs on your door, and Wind Skip will make her able to teleport from one hall to another without ever appearing in your window like she usually does. I don't think I have to explain why this character is awful to deal with. The rules that go along with her are far more complicated than any other character, F tier. The next character we have to begrudgingly talk about is Ammo. Ammo starts in the dining room and will slowly wander to your right door. Each camera he travels through will have an eject button with 2 power. Before Ammo reaches your office, you must press the eject button on any camera that has the eject power, which will then send him back to the dining room. Once a camera is out of power, there's no way to get it back. If this wasn't terrible sounding enough, you haven't even heard of his 3 penalties yet. Quiet Ammo will remove his sound cue when he moves. Single Take only allows each room to have 1 eject power instead of 2, and Demon adds Ammo's friend, Demon, who will randomly move around the ejectable cameras. If you eject a camera Demon is on, you will die. I hate this character. Dealing with him can be bad on higher AI values, but since he's nowhere near as bad as some of the other characters in this game, I'm putting him in D tier. And here we are, 29 pages into my script later, and we can talk about the final animatronic in this game, Swagman. Swagman has a pretty interesting mechanic I've actually never seen before. He will randomly wander around the cameras. You will have to stare at him to fill his swag meter up. If it goes all the way down, he will make you put the mask on for a long ass time. However, this mechanic isn't as bad as I'd usually say it is, because you can easily tell which camera Swagman is on because he lights it up. So, what about his 3 penalties? Well, Swagalicious makes him move from camera to camera faster, which can get annoying. Endless Swag will force you to put the mask on for the rest of the night if Swagman gets in, and Eye on the Swag will make Swagman's meter go up slower than usual. Overall, not a bad character, and no penalty that removes the ability to see what camera he's on. C tier. And there we go. That's every single character in Too Many Nights. I love how many there are. It leads to such a new and interesting experience every time you play, and I love it. But now I'd like to mention the general penalties that aren't specific to any character, as there are a few of those as well. Generally, from what I've noticed, it's much smarter to pick the general penalties over the character penalties, as it will be much more likely that they will be easier to deal with. Overtime will make each hour of the night last 2 seconds longer, and you can actually have 2 overtime penalties active at a time. Less power will, as the name suggests, make you start each night with less power, 10% to be exact, and you can have 3 of these penalties. Less room is a penalty that will give you 1 less option when selecting animatronics, and you can have 2 of them. All-Star will make the next enemy you add start at max AI value. Stranger Danger will add a random character you don't already have at a very low AI value, and Midnight Motivation will make all characters' AI value increase at 3 AM. All-Star, Stranger Danger, and Midnight Motivation are probably going to be penalties you always want to avoid, but I personally don't think the other characters are that bad. Next up, I'd like to talk about the characters that you can unlock to play as, because if you remember, each character has different pros and cons for you to choose from. To start, each character has a different amount of lives they'll start you with. Getting jump scared by an animatronic will cause you to lose one of these lives, giving you multiple opportunities if you mess up. And of course, I'll be putting these guys on a tier list as well. The first character you will have by default is Michael. He gives you 3 hearts and has no abilities. He's as basic can get, really. D tier. You also, by default, have 3 other much more interesting characters. The first being Elizabeth. She gives you 4 hearts and forces the enemies to have their AI values increase slower. But as a con, you'll receive half the amount of coins you usually get. The low AI value honestly makes her pretty valuable, but of course, never being able to buy anything is never fun. C tier. Evan is the next auto-unlocked character. He gives you 3 hearts, makes all enemies start on a higher AI value, but to compensate, nets you 1.5x more coins, which will be nice for when we talk about shops later in the video. High AI values are never super great, especially if you're dogshit at FNAF games like I am, but overall, he is nowhere near the worst character to choose. C tier. Cassidy is the last character you'll unlock by default. She only gives you 1 heart and makes every single enemy start at maximum aggression, and forces you to pick a penalty every single night. She also will never allow you to see shops. Instead, you can use your money to remove penalties and animatronics. I don't care that you can remove things. Having to pick a penalty every night whilst also only having 1 heart is pure AIDS. F tier. Henry is the first character on the list to unlock. However, you can unlock them in pretty much any order you want. Henry is unlocked by beating at least 1 night while using Michael, Elizabeth, Evan, and Cassidy. Something that should be very easy to pull off. He gives you 3 hearts and gives you way more options when picking enemies, penalties, and shop items. However, you will be forced to pick more enemies and more penalties. The last thing you're going to want to do is give yourself more threats. So even though your option pool is bigger, the cons outweigh the pros here a lot. D tier. Gabriel can be unlocked by having 2 penalties active in a run that affect Freddy. He gives you 3 hearts, gives you a guaranteed shop every single night. But as a downside, each character comes with a few of their penalties already added. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, and a lot of character-specific penalties are horrific. Sure, you may never have to pick a penalty after beating a night, but I really don't care about that as much as getting butt-fucked by character penalties. F tier. Jeremy can be unlocked by getting a power outage on night 3 and beyond and still surviving the night. Generally one of the harder characters to unlock. He gives you 5 hearts. You start the run with 500% power instead of 100%. The nights are shorter than usual, but as a downside, your power carries over from night to night. But don't let that fool you. 500% power is a lot of fucking power, and if you're good at enemy building, you can easily make that last a long time. And 5 hearts is a fuck ton. Easy A tier character. Susie will be unlocked if you die to Chica twice in a single night and then beat that night. She gives 3 hearts. Each enemy starts at max AI value, but you gain 1 life after you beat a night. Now, at first glance, this may sound really bad, but I actually had my second best run ever using Susie, and it's 100% because of that life gain. With characters always on max difficulty, there's no way for them to get harder, so you'll get used to them at their hardest difficulty pretty quickly. Sure, she's not the best, but she definitely isn't as bad as she sounds. B tier. Fritz is unlocked by having 100 or more coins at one time in a single run. He gives you 2 hearts, and your lives are attached to the number of coins you have. To be specific, for every 50 coins you have, that equals 1 heart. Overall, this character is more confusing than it will ever be useful, actively discouraging you from ever buying anything. You're better off just using Michael, as there's no real downside. D tier. Fitzgerald is unlocked by beating night 5 in a run whilst only picking the leftmost enemies and penalties. I actually struggled a bit unlocking this character, so what does he do? Well, you start with 3 hearts, and each enemy and penalty are randomized each night, meaning the 3 enemies you pick on night 1 will be different on night 2, and you can also pay to reroll, as well as getting a shop every single night. This character really just serves as what I'm going to call a challenge character. You would never actually want to bring this character into a legitimate run, and because of that, I'm giving him an F tier. Sally is easily the most unique character out of all of the normal ones, and I'll explain what normal means in a bit. You unlock her by beating a night with both Percy Poodle and Rowan Rat on max AI values. Sally introduces a brand new mechanic, that being the pup pal from Playtime with Percy. It works in the exact same way as in that game, and the best part, your progress on the night is tied to it. No more waiting out the night. you will have to complete the games on the Pup Pal for the night to end. Again, this goes to serve as more of a challenge character than anything else, as playing Sally will by default make the game much harder. And because of this, I'm giving her F tier. Again, not because she's not a fun character, but because if you're trying to get far in a run, she's not the character for you. And finally, we have the man himself, Scott Cawthon, who is unlocked by completing Night 3 with every other character in the game. And of course, since he's the final character, he has the most interesting mechanic. He himself doesn't have any abilities, instead letting you pick the pros and cons from every other character in the game, allowing you to mix and match your favorite pieces from other characters. You don't need me to tell you that Scott is a broken character. I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. Easy S tier. And boom, that's every single playable character in Too Many Nights. So now we can start talking about the items that can be bought in the shop. I won't be going over each and every one since there are literally a fuck ton to talk about, and this video is already long enough. But I do want to talk about some of the best ones to look out for. Early Out is an item that will make each night 2 seconds shorter. More Power will start each night with 10% more power. More Room will give you more options when picking animatronics. The Empress will give you 1 life and give you more options when picking animatronics. The Emperor will decrease every animatronic's AI value by 2. The Chariot will have you start each night with 15% more power. The Hanged Man will remove 2 random penalties you have activated. Death removes a random enemy. The Moon makes each hour 3 seconds shorter. Fritz Children's Bible will make items you can't afford never show up in shops, and Sparked will make sparks appear randomly on cameras, and touching them will increase your power. Those are all of the yummy mashed potatoes in my belly items that I like to look out for in the shop. Again, there are a lot more, but I think it would just be really boring to go over all of them. But there you go. That's everything you need to know, and as far as I'm aware, everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I would highly recommend you give this game a try. It is some of the most fun I've ever had since starting this channel, and I actually plan on doing some Too Many Nights streams here on this channel. If that's something you're interested, let me know. Also, if you were interested, Too Many Nights is actually getting a version 2.1, and it's being worked on as I'm writing this. I'm super excited to see what it has to offer once it's fully released. This game is so incredibly unique and combines 2 of my favorite game genres of all time into one amazing game. The art style is unique, the community input is fantastic, and of course, the gameplay and gameplay loop are impeccable. 2D FNAF fan games, something you don't see all too often in the mainstream. A few well-known titles may come to mind. Maybe you think of Playtime with Percy, One Night at Flumpty's, or maybe Too Many Nights pops into your head. However, as of recently, I'm sure there's another very popular 2D FNAF fan game that you can think of. One that's made the rounds in my comment section so much that I can't release any video without getting asked to cover it. Five Nights at Frederick's. I was honestly expecting to not like this game, and no, it's not because it's popular. Do you ever get that feeling where you look at something and you just feel like you're not going to like it? Food is a great example. Sure, I've never tried a Brussels sprout, but I can guarantee you that I'm not going to like it. This is the feeling I had when I first looked at Five Nights at Frederick's. And oh boy, am I ever glad you guys wouldn't shut up about it. Because it has easily become one of my favorite FNAF games of all time. Sit the fuck down and listen to me, a 20-year-old, fully grown man, ramble about a game made for children once again. Five Nights at Frederick's is as simple as a FNAF game can get in terms of what is actually going on. Our character's name is Alan Fritter, and we see an ad in the newspaper. Oh great, a new job, let's apply. Frederick's doesn't try to break the mold here. However, don't let that fool you, as there still is a pretty interesting story this game has to tell. Given the fact there's not much exposition to talk about, we instead get to hop right into night 1 and go over to the office and look at the tools at our disposal. Our office looks very similar to the office from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. 2 doors to the right and left of us, some cameras, bada bing bada boom, classic Five Nights at Freddy's. So, why does this game stand out to me and so many others then? Well, I'm glad you asked. Opening up the cameras, we will see the first main gameplay loop Frederick's has to offer. Going to the kitchen cameras, we will see that we're able to make pizzas. This will very quickly become the biggest priority in the entire game, but I'll go into more detail with it when it becomes relevant. But to keep it simple, always make sure you have a pizza cooking. When a pizza is done cooking, you will be able to hear a ding sound cue. That lets you know that you need to start making the next pizza. You'll notice that the doors in your office are replaced by lasers. This is one of the many interesting quirks this game has. Let's go over a few other fun stuff in the office. Occasionally, when you flip up the camera, some things have the chance to change in your office. For example, the main poster can change to have references to other fan games such as Five Newfangled Nights, Five Nights at Frickbear's 3, Not Bear, and Too Many Nights. I think including references to other fan games really helps pull the community together, which I really like. With that out of the way, now we can dive into the threats this night has to offer, starting with this game's Bonnie, or as this game calls him, Bernard das Karnickel. Yes, by the way, each of these characters in this game have been given a German name. If you'd like to know the reason why, tough shit, because even the dev doesn't know why he chose to do this. Bernard acts somewhat similarly to Bonnie, being the character that attacks your doors, except this time around he can attack both instead of just one. A big step up from what he usually does. Friedrichs has no lights on the doors, so you'll have to look out for Bernard's fingers to be able to tell that he's there. If he is, use the lasers to shock him and he'll run away. If you don't do so fast enough, he'll step into your office and kind of just stand there, blocking the laser button and just kind of stare at you with his dopey ass face. This is also a good portion of the video to bring up how the power usage in this game works. It's obviously the same as any other game in concept. The more things you're using that waste power, the higher the usage will be, and the higher the usage meter is, the faster your power drains. You'll notice a difference in this game than in a game like Five Nights at Freddy's 1, where in FNAF 1, the moment you stop using something, the usage will instantly decrease, whereas in Friedrichs, the power will decrease exponentially. However, this may also just be a visual thing, so maybe I'm just talking stupid right now. This night also introduces Chica, or as this game calls her, Clara das Kuchen. Clara is the reason why cooking the pizzas is so important. Clara will enter the kitchen. If a pizza is not cooking, she'll take charge and start cooking one herself. Except there's something really funny about that. And that's that she literally fucking sucks so bad at cooking you would not believe it. If you let Clara put her pizza into the oven, the building will very quickly start on fire. Very on par for a FNAF game, by the way. When the building is on fire, a brand new mechanic is introduced, the sprinkler system. If your building temperature reaches 120 degrees, none of the electronics in the building will work. That means no cameras and no lasers. This, of course, will result in a death, so you have to use the sprinklers to stop the fire. I honestly think that the sprinkler mechanic is the coolest addition in this entire game. Once you use the sprinklers, the monitor in your office will display how wet the building is. The higher the percentage, the longer it will take for things to activate when used. For example, once you use the sprinklers, it will shoot up to 100%. If you were to then do anything, from trying to start another pizza to using the lasers, you would have to wait around 2 seconds before they would actually activate after pushing them. This doesn't make the game impossible, and this percentage will slowly decrease back down to 0, but this is actually so fucking cool. It's something I don't think I've ever seen before. If you fail a mechanic in the game, instead of just losing, you're given the opportunity to correct yourself. However, it does come at the cost of needing you to react even faster until the wetness goes all the way back down. Yes, it does make the night stressful, but I think it's super cool and once again is my favorite mechanic in the entire game. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. There are actually no post-night minigames in Friedrichs, which honestly feels weird to say since I usually spend a pretty decent amount of time in each video talking about them. But since there aren't any, I'm safe to move on to Night 2. God, this game just makes my days so much better. Night 2 introduces 2 new threats. Let's talk about the character you'll recognize more first. Foxy, or as this game calls him, Felix der whatever the fuck, I'm not gonna try to say that. Surprisingly, Felix wasn't given a Foxy-like mechanic. Instead, he almost does the opposite. Kind of. Where in FNAF 1, the more you watch Foxy, the less he moves. Felix is the opposite. The more you watch him, the more he moves. And in much the same way as Foxy. And by that, I mean you don't really have to be looking at him, but rather just have the cameras up. You see, Felix might just be a little bit of an autistic fellow. He really likes this spinning casino wheel, so much so that he will get very upset when it's not spinning. Depending on the difficulty setting, you will have a predetermined number of times that you can flip up the camera before the casino wheel stops spinning. And when it does stop spinning, Felix will haul ass to your office to politely ask you to spin it for him again. He's checking up. He's like, please, turn the wheel back on. I like it when the wheel is on. When he's in your office, he'll block the laser button, preventing you from keeping Bonnie or another character we'll mention later out. To spin the wheel, all you have to do is go back over to the camera and push the spin wheel button, where he will then sprint back out of your office to continue watching it spin. Felix and his mechanics remind me in a way of Clara, a general timer that counts down to an event that will make your run more difficult, and its fix is to just click a button on the camera. Now, you might think that because of that, I'd call this a lazy design, and while technically yes, it is pretty much the same recycled mechanic, I actually think that it makes the gameplay loop more enjoyable. Why? Well, Five Nights at Frederick's gets you into what I like to call a flow state while you are playing. Every single mechanic in this game works together to make the entire experience feel satisfying to play. Most mechanics in this game are reaction-based, which is something I like to think I'm pretty good at. This leads to a very smooth feeling gameplay loop where yes, it is challenging, however, you almost always feel in control and every single interaction feels solid and responsive. The other threat this night adds is the endoskeleton in the back room, or as this game calls it, Endoskelet. Endoskelet behaves exactly how Bernard does with a small twist. He too will attack either of your two doors, but instead of blocking the button like Bernard, Endo will butt bang your power usage and force it to stay completely full until you inevitably die. I personally think that Endo has the weakest mechanic out of this entire game. However, one thing I do appreciate about him is that at least he has the decency to make a sound cue when he arrives at your door, unlike fuck-ass Bernard. Now, you might think this game seems way too easy. You never have to check the cameras until you either A, hear a very distinct sound cue letting you know to bake a pizza, or B, if Felix runs into your office, and usually, I'd agree. Up until this moment, the game is overall pretty easy, but we have yet to introduce a character that will force us to use the cameras and probably make your butthole pucker more than just a few times. So let's move on to Night 3. Night 3 introduces the main attraction himself, Freddy. Or of course, as you already know, this game calls Friedrich Fazbear. Friedrich is bolted to the stage, so that may lead you to ask the question, how is he even a fucking threat if he can't leave the stage? Well, you see, there's actually a pretty interesting plot twist here, and that's that the game fucking lied. Friedrich is bolted to the stage, however, that doesn't prevent him from moving at all. He'll jump up to the vent on the ceiling and start pulling his way through towards your office. You'll be able to see him go through 3 distinct phases on the cameras. Once he reaches stage 3, you must use the lasers to shock him, which will then cause him to go back to the stage where he will promptly try again. What this mechanic does so well for the game is force you to look at the cameras, giving Friedrich synergy with Felix. Now, I have to be transparent here. There is a sound cue that plays whenever Friedrich enters a new phase in the camera. However, it's pretty damn quiet, and with how frequently characters will be screaming from being shocked, music playing loud as fuck in your ear, as well as a multitude of other things, it will probably be very common for you to just not hear these sound cues because of how faint they naturally are. Now, of course, if you have God hearing, then checking the cameras is literally only necessary when a pizza needs to be baked, Felix needs the wheel spun, or Friedrich needs a good shock. But I honestly feel like this mechanic really ties the whole gameplay loop together. So, what could the game possibly do to spice the gameplay up from here? Oh, for fuck's sake, the power went out. Oh, fuck you! Fuck you! Hold on. What the fuck? More specifically, just the lights. Yeah, that's right. The gimmick of Night 4 is that the only way you can see is through a flashlight that follows your mouse. The cameras will be dark as well, making it harder to see some of the characters. Let's just take a moment to talk about how fucking genius this mechanic is. The only other FNAF game that I can think of that does this is Showman's, and it was brilliant there as well. Without literally changing anything about the game, you've just made it much more challenging. Especially when it comes to Bernard. Oh my god, Bernard. Bernard is the sole reason this night is even remotely difficult. If you remember from earlier, Bernard doesn't make a sound cue when he's at your door. He's also one of the characters that doesn't have glowing eyes. So this brings up the question, how are you supposed to be able to tell he's at the door if you can't see him? I want you to take a good long look at this image right here. Do you see it? Yeah, that's Bernard's hand. That's all you get to be able to tell if he's there. Obviously, looking at it now, it seems so clear. How could you even miss that? But let me tell you, when you're in a game, focusing on managing all the characters at once, this little detail could very easily end a lot of your runs. And that was totally the intention. And I think that's really cool. Again, making the game harder without drastically changing anything. It's awesome. But if you manage to complete night 4, an unknown figure will appear in front of you and roar, flinging you to the back of the office where you'll fall into a springlock suit and fucking die. What the fuck? Yeah, I'm not kidding. That's what happens. And this leads perfectly into night 5. Night 5 has you awaken, finding out you're not dead inside the suit. Getting back up, you notice the figure that caused your death was Golden Friedrich, the final boss of this game. Using your new powers from the suit, you fucking punch him in the face and he runs away like a bitch. Get ready, guys. Let's talk about the most frustrating character Five Nights at Frederick's has to offer, Golden Friedrich. Night 5 is easily my favorite night in the entire game. This is the night that really shows off the flow state you can get into while playing this game, and I'll explain why as we go. To start, let's go over how Golden Friedrich works. Golden Friedrich has 4 means of attacking you. The first attack has him go to either of your doors like Bernard. A noticeable sound cue will play, that being him laughing, which by the way you should get used to because he's going to be doing that a lot throughout this night. Deal with him by using the lasers how you'd expect. The next mechanic has him dive into the vent like Friedrich. Deal with him the same way you would Friedrich, just by using the laser. Now we can talk about the other 2 attack methods that aren't seen anywhere else in the game. The first has him appear in your office. When he does, simply fucking punch him in the face. As you can tell by the look on his face after doing so, he is so incredibly shocked that you would even have the balls to attempt something like that. So insane, so he will quickly leave. The final attack, the most soul-sucking, fuck-ass, bitch-ass mechanic. I want you guys to take a guess what he could possibly do. That's right! My least favorite fucking FNAF mechanic ever designed! Teleporting to a random camera and having to search for which one he fucking went to and stare at him until he goes away. Friedrichs, you were doing so well. Why'd you have to do this to me? Why'd you have to bend me over and just fuck me right up the ass? Why? Why add this mechanic and blow up my internal organs like the goddamn 4th of July? I'm basically holding your fucking prison wallet. Go find him on the cameras. How about you go find my nuts? But hey, at least the rest of the night is pretty cool. Unlike most boss fight nights from FNAF games, this night doesn't make the boss the only threat throughout. However, this night will slowly reintroduce the characters you've been going up against as the night progresses every hour. 1 AM, Bernard and Endoskelet reappear. Night 2, Chica and Felix reappear. 3 AM, Freddy appears. And finally at 4 AM, your lights go out once more. And at 5 AM, the building starts on fire, forcing you to use the sprinklers. And from there, it's just a crazy survival game until the final 6 AM. This night is honestly some of the most fun I've had with a FNAF game. Slowly reintroducing each mechanic throughout the night just made the whole experience slowly feel like it was getting harder and harder, which, to be fair, it was. 100% go try this game out. You will not regret it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that throughout this night, you've been able to see this memory wipe meter slowly fill up. Well, at the end of the night, it completes, and the character we've been playing as so far seemingly finally dies. Golden Friedrich laughs at the corpse, and that's when we're shot back to the menu to see that there is a night 6. But if we're dead, how is that even going to work? Ladies and gentlemen, Let me introduce you to the second main character of this game, Ella Vanilla. Ella is who we play as on night 6. She discovers a job flyer in the local newspaper and decides that it'd be a great idea to become the new night guard at Frederick's. Entering the office for the final night, we're greeted to, oh my fucking god, there's Alan right there. That's right. On top of everything we've seen so far, our previous protagonist becomes an antagonist on this night, and he's pretty damn aggressive as well. Now being called Fritterfalle, he acts as an additional threat to make night 6 a pain in the dick. His mechanic is simple, basically being a music box, something I wasn't super thrilled about when I first saw it, but overall ends up not really feeling like one, even though that's literally all it is. Throughout this night, Fritterfalle will attempt to get up and murk your ass. In order to sedate him, all you have to do is hold his nose. According to the lore, the owners of this restaurant actually tell the technicians to do this to Fritter because they know how much of a threat he is. Yet for some reason, they refuse to throw his ass out. But with that, that's all the main game of Five Nights at Frederick's has to offer. Let's fucking go! Woo! Woo! 217. Ella Vanilla. Fuck yeah, we got SpongeBob over there. Is that Gustavo Fring up here? But, as I'm sure you can tell by looking at the timeline of this video, I still have more I want to talk about. That being the story, and my favorite thing about any game ever, post-game. Let's start with the story. You may think that this game doesn't really have anything else besides what we've already covered with Alan and Ella, but there actually is a little bit more to dissect. I want to first thank commenters such as Lex Gauntly and Redman. If it weren't for comments like these on my Tales of the Bunnyman video, I probably wouldn't feel as confident talking about the story, as it is something I don't like doing because I don't feel like I can do it as much justice as it deserves. I also really want to thank City, the owner of the FNAF Game Wiki, for reaching out to me on Discord to tell me about certain things and clarify any questions I have when researching these videos. Let's start by getting something out of the way. Frederick's Pizza is not a chain restaurant like Freddy Fazbear's, instead just being a standalone restaurant. The animatronics used to be kept in a location known only as F-NJ02. What the hell does that mean? I have no fucking idea. But at some point, these characters were transferred to another location known as F-PA09, which is the restaurant we see in the game. Throughout the game, you learn how to deal with the threats through the pages of the service manual on your desk. Turning over these pages will slowly tell a very disturbing story. They reveal that each animatronic were noted to have unknown human remains making up a majority of their body. Frederick has human teeth and eyes, Clara has human arms, Bernard is literally just an amalgamation of human mush, Felix has human eyes, and Endo has human veins and teeth. On Flinguary, yes, by the way, the months are named differently in this game, 29th, 2009, Alan Fritter takes the job at Frederick's after standing outside the building and slapping the window until he was hired. The reason he wanted the job? I have no fucking idea, and it's not clear in the game either, so just accept it. However, it is clear that the animatronics remember him from past events and are intent on killing him. Throughout the night, you are supposed to be taught the mechanics through the manual on your desk. However, the pages of said manual have been ripped out, crumpled, and scribbled on by presumably previous employees. These scribbles are mocking the animatronics, which I get the funny feeling pisses them off a little bit, and it's confirmed that the characters enjoy killing the guards at the establishment. It's confirmed that Clara made her first successful pizza using Alan's body parts. Bernard used his arms as a back scratcher. Frederick used his fucking veins as dental floss, which is insane, and Endoskelet used his remains as a suit. As far as I could tell, Felix is the only one who didn't do something fucked with the corpse. Obviously, at the end of the week, Alan gets that Soulja Boy cranked on him by Golden Frederick and is stuffed inside a spare suit. His memory is wiped, and instead of disposing of the corpse in their restaurant, the owners instead instructed the technicians to use him for testing. Okay, maybe I'm too level-headed, but this seems like a very stupid idea that would get OSHA on your ass in about 4 seconds flat. Of course, Ella Vanilla later takes his position and we play as her in Night 6. It's clear that Alan still somewhat has a presence inside of the suit. Obviously because he can attack you while playing as Ella, but also because through the extras menu, we learn that he responds to Ella's comments through the collectibles menu, and at one point even entrusts her with holding an unstated item appearing as some weird looking snapped object. But really, after this, the story is either unclear or not canon. So as far as I'm aware, that's everything, and Five Nights at Frederick's truly comes to a close. Overall, I think Five Nights at Frederick's is one of the most fun FNAF experiences I've ever had. The game is goofy, the story is simple and silly, and the game mechanics are some of the most solid and fun to play I've ever seen. The amount of post-game in the extras menu is also more than I've seen in many other FNAF games. Juniors is the most unique FNAF fan game I've ever played, and I have played a lot of them. Really, I've quite literally built my entire career around playing FNAF games, and Juniors is 100% the most fun I've ever had playing any FNAF game ever designed. This video is here to go over everything I love about the game and the few things that I hate, because truly, I do not believe there is currently any FNAF fan game that does the formula better than Juniors. So let's waste no more time on the intro that nobody cares about and get into the best FNAF fan game ever made. Before we begin talking about Juniors, I want to tell a bit of a story, or I guess more of a fun fact. I actually wanted to avoid playing and reviewing Juniors for the longest time. I've been getting suggestions for it since my first ever FNAF video over a year ago, and I've always decided that I didn't want to touch it. Why? Because I used to have this really cringy way of thinking. If something is popular, it must be overrated type of mentality. After finally sitting down and playing through Juniors, seeing it completely blind for my first time ever, I will never in my life think like that ever again. This game truly has made me more passionate to create content more than any other game ever has. Set your expectations as high as you want, and I guarantee Juniors will still blow them out of the water. We play as an unnamed paranormal investigator. We're assigned with exploring the supernatural presence of the restaurant Juniors. As I'm sure you may have guessed, yes, this is the same Juniors that can be seen in the Midnight Motorist minigame from Pizzeria Simulator. We wake up in a place called the Barrens, which seems to be a limbo between life and death. Looking up, we can see what I assume to be our own brain, and we soon meet a character named Paul Bear. Throughout this game, we don't learn much about Paul Bear, but he is the only friend we have throughout the game. Paul Bear explains that there is an evil presence inside of the Juniors establishment, only ever referring to it as the Ghost. Eventually, we strike a deal with Paul Bear. He agrees to help us with our investigation of Juniors, and we agree to help Paul Bear find freedom from the Ghost by defeating it in one way or another. With that, we head to bed and start our first night. Usually, the way I talk about nights in FNAF games is pretty basic. I bring up which threats are introduced, how to deal with them, and throw in a dick joke or something. However, Juniors does the entire FNAF formula so differently from any other FNAF game I've seen, so covering this is going to be a fun change of pace. To start, Juniors completely gets rid of the sit and survive style of gameplay that most other FNAF games have. The game still has the classic 6 nights, however, each night isn't completed once you've made it to an arbitrary time limit. Instead, similar to a game like Pizzeria Simulator, progression is based on finishing tasks. Except the key difference between the tasks in Pizzeria Simulator and the tasks in Juniors is that one of those games has super fun tasks that I look forward to doing, and the other game is fucking Pizzeria Simulator. But what exactly are the tasks in Juniors? I'm so glad you asked, because these tasks are the sole reason why this game is so amazing. Throughout the night, the ghost Paul Bear was telling us about will enter one of the animatronics at random. It's our job to watch the cameras for weird anomalies and figure out which animatronic is possessed. And each night, you will have to correctly identify where the ghost is more and more times. On night 1, you need to correctly identify the ghost 2 times, and with each subsequent night, that number goes up by 1. But before we really get into that, there's something else that this game does that I wasn't expecting. Typically in FNAF games, the animatronics will make their way to your office and try to attack you. This is actually not the case in Juniors. The animatronics will never come to your office. Well, at least not in the typical FNAF way, but I'll cover that in a minute. The tools at our disposal are pretty minimal. We have our cameras, control panel, and our repair room. Throughout the course of the night, if you check your control panel, you will be able to see the condition of each of the 6 animatronics. Yes, 6. You've got the main 4, with the addition of the marionette and balloon bitch, or as this game calls him, balloon baby. As the night progresses, the condition of each of these characters will decrease. If they ever go completely empty, they'll use your ass as sustenance and gobble it up. At any time, you can send one of the animatronics onto a conveyor belt that will bring the character to your repair room. Once inside the repair room, you can quickly fix them and send them back into the pizzeria. This will cause their condition to go back up to 100. However, you have to be careful, because if you send the possessed animatronic to your office, it's game over. Another thing to note is that you can't send more than one character to your repair room at a time. Moving on to the actual ghost hunting part of this game. As mentioned previously, there are 6 characters that the ghost can possess. Both at the start of the night and directly after identifying the possessed character, you will get a grace period where no animatronic is possessed. You should use that time to send the lowest conditioned animatronic to your office to be repaired. There are multiple different cues to tell you who the possessed animatronic is. It seems like throughout the nights, new clues are introduced. However, I cannot find a distinct list of what clues get introduced each night, so I'm going to be guessing based on my experience. If you know that I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. There are 2 clues that are introduced on night 1. The first one is pretty easy: camera flickering. When an animatronic is possessed, they have a chance to cause the camera that they are currently on to start flickering. The cameras by default flicker their lights, so this is pretty subtle, but if you look closely at an actual flickering camera, you'll be able to tell that the ghost is on it, because between the flickering, the cameras will have a brief period where they go black. That sounds pretty easy, I hear you saying, and while yes, it is, this is another part of the game that I think is super cool. There aren't an insane amount of cameras to look through, and it's very common that multiple characters will be visible on a camera at the same time. So this brings up the possible problem. If the cameras are flickering on a camera, but multiple characters are present, how do we figure out which of the animatronics is actually the possessed one? This right here, this conflict that you have to figure out, is the main reason why I love this game so much. It's such a simple problem, but the way you go about solving it can be different depending on your playstyle. This is honestly the coolest mechanic I've ever seen out of any FNAF game, and I don't think it's ever going to be beat. So, what was my strategy? Let's start with the hypothetical that we'll use throughout this video. Let's say we're looking at a camera that has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy present on it. The camera is flickering, so we know that either Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, or Foxy are the possessed animatronic. The first thing I would do is either send Balloon Bitch or the marionette to the conveyor belt, since I know full well it can't be one of them. So I'd just pick whoever has lower condition. Then I would constantly keep my eye on all 4 animatronics on that camera until 1 or more of them left. Once they left, let's say for example Freddy and Chica leave, I would stay on the camera to see if the flickering persisted. If it did, then I'd know it can't be Freddy or Chica. Let's say Foxy left next and Bonnie stayed on the camera. If the lights stopped flickering, then I'd know for a fact it has to be Foxy. And if I really wanted to double check, I could find the camera where Foxy left to and see that the lights are still flickering. But as I've said, that is only 2 of the clues that are introduced on this night. What's the other? Handprints. I should mention that once the ghost possesses a character, only 1 of the clues will become present in that character until it is found. And from what I can tell, they never switch which clue they have until the ghost is found. Handprints are pretty simple. When a possessed character leaves a camera, they will leave a handprint behind on the lens of the camera. So let's go back to our hypothetical again. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are all on 1 camera. Freddy and Chica leave, and after doing so, we spot a handprint on the lens. That means we now know that the ghost has to be in either Freddy or Chica. So we can send either Foxy, Bonnie, the marionette, or Balloon Bitch to the conveyor belt, and all that's left is to watch Freddy or Chica. Whoever we choose, we wait for them to leave a camera. If Chica leaves and a handprint isn't seen, that means the possessed character has to be Freddy. And with that, night 1 is in the bag. After the night, we head back to the Barrens and talk to Paul Bear again. He explains that he himself chooses to stay in the Barrens because the ghost won't go there. Pussy-ass ghost Paul Bear is afraid of another ghost. Don't question it. It's kind of like those people who are afraid of other people. What do we call those things? Oh, yeah, moderators. Anyways, night 2 time. Night 2 doesn't appear to add any new clues. However, I will take this time to talk about how Paul Bear can aid in our investigations throughout the night. If at any point you're confused on who the ghost may be hiding in, once per night you can go to the control panel and actually ask Paul Bear who he thinks it is. He'll be able to narrow it down to 2 characters. Do you need this to beat the nights? No. But I do think it's kind of neat that it's available if you're struggling. I only ever used it once throughout my playthrough on accident because I didn't know that clicking on this would actually cause him to give me a hint. Also, if you want to watch my full playthrough, you can do so on my second channel, Dxtr Black. It's also on this night where I want to bring up the Marionette and Balloon Bitch. Since you can never actually see either of them on the cameras, you may be wondering how you're supposed to be able to tell if they are possessed. I'll talk about the Marionette later, so for now I'll talk about Balloon Bitch. His mechanic is actually incredibly simple, and I honestly think it's one of the weakest mechanics in the entire game. All you have to do to check if Balloon Bitch is possessed is look at your control panel. If his condition number is freaking the fuck out, he's possessed. If it's not, he's not. That's it. Again, I don't really think that this has a good reason for existing. Maybe the dev just wanted a 6th character so that there would be 3 on each side on the control panel, but I feel like it would have been much more interesting if you just allowed Balloon Bitch to be seen on the camera like the main 4. He could have been made to be a more challenging character. Since he's smaller than everyone else, having him hide in the cameras and be immune to the motion sensor could have been a super interesting challenge. But let me know what you guys think about Balloon Bitch in the comments. After completing night 2, we find a VHS tape. Watching it shows a claymation of Freddy carrying an animatronic limb up to a door. The door has a note on it that says, "Beware the mangle." Looking up, Freddy appears to see said mangle looming down on him, and the cutscene comes to a close. Heading back to the Barrens, we ask Paul Bear about what we saw on the tape. He says he believes that the ghost is trying to build itself a body in the form of the mangle, and that it's possessing the other characters to bring the parts to it. Appearing that we're now on a timer, we know that we have to do something, so we head to sleep and move on to night 3. Night 3 introduces one new clue that the characters can use: camera movement. This one is pretty simple. However, I should start by explaining how the cameras work a little bit more. Typically in FNAF games, the camera will slowly pan back and forth as you look at them. In Juniors, you have to manually move the cameras to see the full picture using WASD. The camera movement clue does exactly what you'd think. If you're moving the cameras, the ghost can cause it to jerk in a direction you're not moving it in. My camera got fucked a little bit, the weird control. I don't know if that was me fucking around or if that was the heathen. Whoa. My camera just fucking zipped. Using that, you can follow the exact same method as the flickering clue. However, the camera will not jerk if you aren't moving the cameras, so you'll need to get into the habit of doing that often. Although that really shouldn't be a problem since, again, you can't see the whole camera unless you move it. This is also the night where I want to talk about the Marionette and how she works. Just like Balloon Bitch, you can't see the Marionette on the cameras. However, you can hear her. You can tell which camera she is on by listening for the music box. If you hear it, then you know that the Marionette is on whichever camera you're looking at. Fundamentally, is this different from the 4 main characters? No. However, I do think it's a super fun addition to the formula, where if we were using our hypothetical again from earlier, let's imagine all 4 of the main characters are on a camera and the camera is jerking in a random direction when we move it. Then all 4 characters leave at the same time, but the camera is still somehow jerking. Then you notice that you've been hearing the music box the whole time and just weren't paying attention. Now you know that it has to be the Marionette. It's not that it's hard to figure out, but it may be something that slips your mind as you're so focused on trying to find the ghost. I love the Marionette in this game, and if you couldn't guess from my constant glaze, it's the best Marionette I've ever seen out of any FNAF game. After completing night 3, we find another tape. On it, we watch the ghost leave Freddy and move to Bonnie. Then see Bonnie carry another piece of the mangle to the secret door. This is another thing I really like about this game. Even though you can't feel it, you know both you and Paul Bear are in a race against the clock. As with every passing night, the mangle gets closer and closer to being completed. and you know that once it's finished, your chances of winning become slim to none. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear isn't present. Climbing up a ladder, we find him in a tree looking out at the brain. We tell him that our investigation ends soon. Paul Bear mentions that the spirits know he's in the Barrens with us by now, and we devise a plan to break into the secret room, the basement, and get to the mangle before it's put together. Sharing a moment of solace together, we head back into the restaurant. Somehow, this game is actually making me care about a character, which is insane to say given the fact I'm talking about a FNAF game right now. But regardless, it's on to Night 4. Night 4 introduces the most ball-busting clue we've ever seen: camera malfunctions. This does exactly what you'd think. The possessed animatronic will cause a malfunction on whatever camera they are on. That means if we go back to our hypothetical, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the marionette are all on the same camera. One of them becomes possessed, so we lose the ability to see that camera. Fuck. Continuing to watch the cameras, we hear the music box stop, but the malfunction continues. We now know that it can't be the marionette. All of a sudden, the camera pops back on, and all we can see is Bonnie. Well, now we know that it can't be Bonnie. Now we look around the cameras until we find the malfunctioning one again. As we look, we spot Foxy on a camera. We now know that the ghost is either Freddy or Chica. Oh fuck. You quickly check the control panel and see that Freddy and Chica are both at 15 stability. What are we to do? We don't have enough time to keep watching. So it is now our time to make a decision you will probably have to make at least once in your playthrough. Praying to the RNG gods that the ghost isn't in Freddy as you send him down the conveyor belt. Freddy finally arrives and you don't die, so you now know it has to be Chica. Realistically, this exact situation doesn't happen all too often, but I do think this malfunction clue is by far the most stressful out of all of them. I think it adds a new type of tension that the game needed. I love this clue. I think it adds a whole new interesting way of analyzing the threat. It's fantastic. After completing the night, we find another VHS. In it, we see the ghost possess Chica while she's sleeping, and she takes another piece to the basement. Heading back to the Barrens, we keep it short and sweet with Paul Bear. He says he knows of a way to the basement, and we tell him that after we wrap up our investigation tonight, we'll meet back up with him and head there to put an end to this. Heading to bed, it's on to Night 5. Night 5 adds no new clues, only being a more difficult version of Night 4, and by more difficult, I mean we have to find the ghost 7 times instead of 6. I'm really out of things to talk about when it comes to the night sections, as I've talked about everything that's relevant throughout them. All we have left to talk about now is in the basement. After completing Night 5, we get one last tape revealing all of the characters awakening the mangle, a foreshadow of what's to come. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear explains the plan. We'll go along with whatever the mangle has planned and lure her into the Barrens and trap her forever. We say our final goodbyes to Paul Bear and enter the basement, not knowing what's ahead of us. Upon entering the basement, we're greeted to a new office. The basement serves as Night 6, the boss fight night. I'm just gonna put this out here right now. I am not a fan of Night 6, gameplay-wise at least. I think it looks great, and I think it serves excellent story purposes, but I think it's a massive step back from the core loop of the game. The basement is set up exactly how the office from FNAF 2 is. 2 open vents to your left and right, and a large hallway in front of you. You have access to a flashlight, cameras, and a Bonnie mask. Yes, it's literally just FNAF 2, even equipped with a music box to constantly wind throughout. Maybe this is the reason I don't like this night. Just kidding, it's not a maybe. Of course this is the reason I don't like it. I'm not a huge FNAF 2 fan personally, so seeing it in a FNAF game that I really like puts a bad taste in my mouth. However, I'm not going to let that discourage me. How does this night play, and are there any redeeming qualities? Throughout the night, all you have to do is wind the music box and put on your mask whenever the animatronic enters your office. If you ever see Foxy in the hallway, flash your light at him. Guys, it's literally just FNAF 2. I really don't have to explain this to you. The characters even look different on this night, and in the extras menu, this version of them is called Withered. It's FNAF 2. That's it. That is until the halfway mark. What the fuck? We were the mangle. What the fuck? Conveyor belt. Yo! What the fuck? Yo, the time's all fucked. What the fuck is that thing? Oh, nah. Halfway through the night, your control panel will be forced up. You'll be able to see the conveyor belt and watch as each character makes its way through. Several sticky notes ridiculing you. Every single animatronic sacrifices its body to the Mangle, and it's finally time for the final fight. The Mangle enters the building, and now is the perfect time to talk about how fucking disgusting these character models look, especially Mangle. The level of detail in these characters is insane. Seeing Mangle on the cameras is probably the most uncomfortable thing about this entire game. She's so gross and it's super cool. But I do have to ask the question, why the fuck do they look like this? Is our main character going insane and imagining that they look like monsters more than they do? Or did the manufacturers of these robots actually design the most fucked up, creepy robots of all time? Anyways, once the Mangle spawns, the way this night is played changes. Now, for some unknown reason, Mangle has an owl attached to her. Does that make sense? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I can't for the fuck of me figure out what that might be. Occasionally, this owl head will appear in either of your two vents. When it does, all you have to do is put the mask on until it leaves. Mangle herself has a chance to appear in the hallway. As far as I can tell, she has no sound cues, so you have to constantly check for her yourself. When she's there, hold the flashlight on her until she leaves. Finally, we have the most soul-sucking, nutsack-tearing, butthole-puckering mechanic in the entire goddamn game. The Ghost. The Ghost can appear on any camera. You'll be able to tell because you can see her hand. When you see the Ghost, all you have to do is hold the light on the camera until it disappears. You might be asking yourself, why the fuck is that a problem? That sounds even easier than the owl. Hell, I almost guarantee you will never be able to see the cameras in your entire fucking life. Why? Well, as I'm sure you're aware if you've ever played a FNAF game before, when a character moves from one camera to another, it's very common for the camera to go black for a moment. This is done so that you don't see the characters teleporting out of sight. However, the Mangle moves so goddamn cocksucking fast through the cameras that they will be black for about, 90% of the fucking night. Meaning that, very rarely will you be able to check if the Ghost is on a camera. Could we stop? Could we stop? Literally, what the fuck am I supposed to do? She's moving around the camera so fast, I can't even fucking look to hold the light on her. I feel like this is unintentionally difficult, but it's actually so bullshit, it's not even close to fun. This is the main reason why I dislike Night 6 as much as I do. Dying because I couldn't find the Ghost because I can't see the fucking cameras for more than 0.3 seconds every 14 decades is not fun. It ruins the pacing of the game and destroys all immersion I had in the situation. But if you can manage to not get fingered by the Ghost, you'll survive to 6 AM and lure the Ghost into the Barrens. The Ghost grabs Paul Bear, revealing he himself is a costume, not an actual plush bear. Surprise, surprise. This should have been obvious. The Ghost tells Paul Bear she's going to kill us, but we quickly run up behind her while she's distracted and fucking gank her ass. Dead kids! Rah! Rah! The screen cuts to black. We learn 5 years later, Juniors would reopen after some significant rebranding, focusing on, quote, family fun and above all, safety. A line that should be familiar sounding if you've played the official games. Finally, a character named Jeremy is asked when they're free to start the job. Let's pause. This twist is pretty damn cool. We saw an exact replica of the FNAF 2 office on Night 6, and now we learn that Jeremy Fitzgerald is being hired. Of course, knowing the official lore, Jeremy was the night guard in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and the family fun and above all safety is something the phone guy says in FNAF 2 as well. Which would lead me to believe that the rebranding of Juniors was to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the form of the pizzeria we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, using the toy animatronics and the layout we find in the basement. But with that final awesome twist, Juniors comes to a close. Overall, I think Juniors is unironically the best Five Nights at Freddy's game I've ever played, even beating out the official games. Sure, I'm not the biggest fan of the final boss night, but the rest of the game easily makes up for that shortcoming. Juniors is 100% at the top of my fan game tier list, and I highly doubt it will be losing that position anytime soon.
When you think of the best FNAF games, what games do you think of? What are your top 5 in terms of quality alone? I'm willing to bet that a lot of people share some of the same entries, and I'm willing to bet that the game we'll be talking about today is at the top of some of your lists, because it's definitely at the top of mine. The Glitched Attraction is a FNAF fan game developed by 2 18-year-old developers alone. The reason I mention their age is because of how impressive this game really is, and how impressive it is that only 2 brand new adults managed to design it themselves. When I first learned how old these guys were, I was shocked. The Glitched Attraction is one of the best FNAF games I've ever played. I know a few of you watch my content to get suggestions for FNAF games to play, and for those of you that do not pass this one up. It is one of the most high-quality experiences of all time. Let's not waste any more time and hop into the Glitched Attraction, FNAF's most high-quality FNAF game ever made. Our game begins with us getting a text from a friend asking us to come check out the new Fazbear escape room attraction, and they tell us to bring all of our things along with us. A request that is definitely weird, but since when has weird ever meant bad in a FNAF game before, am I right? So we do just that, pack up all of our things and set out. You heard it here first. The Glitched Attraction is seriously a Five Nights at Freddy's escape room, a concept that sounded so cool I couldn't not check this game out, and I'm glad I did. We arrive at the attraction and 2 helper bots explain what's going to happen, and then we have to give over everything we have. Why the fuck did we bring everything we own if we're just going to give it to some random robots? This is pretty fishy smelling, and I should know because I haven't showered in 8 weeks. With the general rules explained, we continue onto the first section of the escape room as chipper as we can be. We're kicking our feet and heel clicking and shit, we're so giddy. Not knowing what we're getting ourselves into, we can dive into the first room of the Glitched Attraction. The first room has us in a room similar in style to the bedroom from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. This room, being the first, isn't very difficult, but let me go over the 4 threats you can find in this room. While you're trying to think, focus, and not be a fuck-up, Nightmare Balloon Boy will be sitting on a chair, because his fat ass wouldn't ever dream of helping anyone, but would instead prefer to sit there and be pointless. But sometimes, he gets a little antsy. You can tell when he's like this because he will visibly seize in his chair until you shine your flashlight at him. It's weird that doing this causes his seizure to stop though, because when I quickly shined a flashlight in my epileptic friend's eyes, he went comatose on the ground and started foaming at the mouth. But to each their own, I guess. If you don't aid in Balloon Boy's assisted suicide, he will jump off the chair and kill you. Something interesting I noted is that Balloon Boy actually makes no noise when he shakes, or even when he jumps off of his chair, leading to a majority of his jump scares feeling really awkward. I get why he doesn't make any noise, because it'd be way too easy to not lose track of him, but just something I thought I'd bring up. You'll realize there's a giant window in this room as well, which lets you see outside. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Nightmare Fredbear stalking you from between the trees. Little does he know that his eyes are actually signal beams as bright as those stupid fucking white LEDs that are now being put onto vehicles, so that when I'm driving at night, everybody's headlights look like they have their fucking brights on. So when I flash my brights at them indicating to turn theirs down, then they actually turn their brights on, which simulate what I can only imagine to be the lights of God. And then I feel like an asshole because I just flashed a guy who didn't have their brights on. Sorry to go off on a tangent like that. I just really had to get my frustration about LEDs on cars out of the way, and I really didn't have a good outlet to do so. Anyways, you'll see Fredbear slowly inch closer to your window throughout the challenge, and when he gets super close, you'll have to close the curtains until you hear him laugh, signaling to you that he's gone away, and then you can reopen the curtains. Why on earth do you not just choose to keep the curtains closed for the whole time then? I have no idea. It's not like we need the moonlight to see. The bots at the beginning gave us a fucking flashlight, but whatever, I guess. Speaking of your flashlight, little tiny stupid insignificant Freddles will periodically appear around your room. They make the same noise as they do in FNAF 4, so hearing them shouldn't be a problem, especially considering how god-awful annoying they sound. Shine your flashlight at them and bada bing bada boom, they go away. But if you let 3 stay in your room and assault your eardrums for too long, 2 of them will grab either one of your butt cheeks as the third dives headfirst into your rectum, which some of you sick fucks may find pleasing, but I for one do not. The final threat you have to worry about is Night Marionette. If you somehow, by some miracle, haven't noticed in the footage I've been showing on screen so far, there is a giant hole busted into the wall of the room, which is very poorly boarded up. Why is it boarded up? I hear you asking? Oh yeah, forgot to mention, it's only because, Satan is in there with enough tentacles to make hentai for the next 9,000 years. But, putting that thought aside, Night Marionette will occasionally give a sound cue to let you know she's there. If you look at the hole, you'll be able to see those tentacles creeping out. At this point, you'll need to make a mad dash to the Golden Freddy suit, which is conveniently placed in the room with you, and hide inside of it. Once you do so for long enough, Night Marionette will leave. Now, hold on. I'm not done talking about this stupid fucking Golden Freddy costume yet. I have some complaining to do, if you could imagine. This Golden Freddy suit takes about, 2 fucking decades to put on. I'm not kidding. You will feel like this game is broken or has paused as you are putting this fucking thing on. But if that wasn't enough, taking it off is somehow even worse. Rather than just exiting the costume, instead, the game thought it would be a great idea to have you teleport out of the costume, where you think you'd be able to continue moving around and interacting with things. But no, that'd be too convenient. Instead, once you teleport out of the costume, you have to just stand there for about 4 seconds doing absolutely nothing. No moving, no using your flashlight, just standing there like a dunce as time still passes around you. While in the Golden Freddy costume, did you happen to notice that Balloon Boy was tweaking out? Okay, cool. Night Marionette's gone. Let's quickly exit the costume and flash Balloon Boy. Oh, wait! Instead of flashing Balloon Boy, i.e. saving your own life, let's instead stand there like we have an iron deficiency for 5 fucking minutes as Balloon Boy twerks his fat jiggly ass all over his goddamn chair. I really needed to get that out of my system. Surely I won't have to complain for the rest of the video now, right? Anyways, how do we actually beat this room's challenge? Good question. You'll notice on the wall there's a picture of Freddy broken up into pieces, with each piece facing a different direction. You can turn each piece in order to make the picture look normal again, but you'll notice that one of the pieces is missing. On the dresser, you'll see the FNAF 4 box that Scott Cawthon wiped his ass with. Of course, it has 2 locks. You can find one of the keys to the locks in a drawer on the dresser, and the other key in the drawer of your nightstand. Using both of these keys to unlock the locks on the box, bars, opens it, revealing the last piece of the Freddy puzzle. You can take that piece and put it back in place to finish the puzzle, revealing a 6-digit code. Quick tip, this number is randomized every time you play it, so no fast speed running for you, sucker. Going back to the nightstand, you can open a door to reveal a safe. You punch that 6-digit code into the safe, open it, and find a hammer. You can then use this hammer to take the nails off the wooden boards covering the closet door, then open the closet door and escape the bedroom. Do keep in mind that as you are trying to do this, you are getting fucked from all angles by about 179 different pieces of fuck. But overall, I think this is by far the easiest room to complete, which is probably how it should be given the fact that we have a lot more rooms to go through. Speaking of, let's get to the next one. The next room is much larger than the previous. This time there are only 3 threats: Toy Chica, Mangle, and the Cupcake. This room is basically a big circle. Chica will walk around the circle patrolling for you. If you get in her line of sight, she will start to chase you. If she catches you, she will throw the meanest right hook I've ever seen since Muzi. You can hide in any of the several lockers lining the walls, but be aware that not all lockers can open. And if you want to know something super awesome, which lockers open are randomized each time you play. Meaning if you lose a run, some of the lockers you hid in before probably will be locked this time. Isn't that awesome? The Cupcake will also patrol around, but he is much less important. He himself can't end your run, but if you're not watching him and accidentally step on him, he will squeak, causing Chica to be alerted to your exact location. For me personally, I hate this type of mechanics in games. I want to note, I don't think they're bad mechanics, I just don't like them. When there's a puzzle, I would like to be able to focus on the puzzle without having to worry about being chased at the same time. It also doesn't help that I don't handle being chased very well in any game, period. But it definitely doesn't help when I'm trying to focus on solving a puzzle on top of that. Just a me thing. But if that wasn't enough for my poor heart to handle, we have Mangle tacked on top of that. Mangle is hiding in the ceiling throughout the challenge. Occasionally, you will hear vent noises. When you do, that's when you know Mangle is about to drop down on yo ass. She has 2 possible drop locations. If you hear the vent noises on a side of the room that you're not on, you can safely ignore her as long as you don't then move to the side she's on. But if you hear her on a side of the room that you are on, you have two options. You can either A, move to the other side of the room, which might be a problem if Chica is over there, or B, hide in a locker. If you don't hide and Mangle happens to see you when she drops down, she will start to chase you. And unlike Chica, when Mangle chases you, there's no way to make her stop. At that point, even hiding in a locker won't be enough to be able to protect your cheeks. So, about the puzzle I was bitching about earlier. You'll notice a large door locked via a pin. The pin is 6 digits long and consists of 6 different symbols. Around the dark room, you'll have to find sticky notes on the walls that correlate each symbol to a number, which will give you the code order needed to unlock the door. If you couldn't have guessed, yes, this is also randomized each time you play. Simply find all the notes, type in the code, and you're done. Come on, you didn't really fall for that, did you? That was way too easy. This is a FNAF game, remember? And according to the FNAF game dev rules, difficulty equals quality. So let's make this as hard as possible. After opening up the door and flipping 4 switches to turn the power to the room on, a whole new world of fuck opens up to us, including a brand new threat, Withered Freddy. Withered Freddy sits inside of a music box, which I find weird because the marionette is literally in this room. I don't know why they didn't just use her for this mechanic, but whatever. Freddy's music box will slowly wind down, and if you don't keep it wound up, he will right hook, shatter the glass, hop out, and chase you. Just like Mangle, there's no hiding. If you hide inside of a locker, Freddy will stand outside of it and wait for you to come out. And when you do, you guessed it, he eats your ass. But because the devs of this game hate their players, if you wind Freddy's music box up too much, he will also shatter the glass and then shatter your sphincter. Cool. As if this wasn't hard enough for poor old Dxtr to handle. What do we have to do now? Well, inside of the room you opened, there's some shit on the wall and we need to find some gears to make the contraption work. Again, you will just walk around the room and find all the needed gears and put them back in their place. Once you do, a door on the opposite side of the room will open and you'll have to make a sprint of fate over to it. And then finally, the room is complete. This room isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I actually really like the concept of adding another threat halfway through. I just personally hate it for reasons stated earlier, but that's just a skill issue on my part. Moving on. Do you like complex things? Well boy, do I have a treat for you. The third room challenge is a nightmare. Let's waste no time and do a Tolarian Community College level threat assessment. This room has 4 threats: Springtrap, Dreadbear, Phantom Foxy, and Phantom Balloon Boy. Phantom Balloon Boy is simple, so let's cover him first. He works just as he does in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He can randomly appear on any of the cameras. If you look at him on the camera for too long, he will jump scare you and cause a video error. Except the video error in this game just means that the camera he jump scared you on can never be used again for the rest of the run, which I promise you is a very bad thing, and the reason will be revealed later. Phantom Foxy can appear in any of the 2 doors connecting to your office. If you look at him for too long, he will charge at you and jump scare you, causing a level of hallucinations to appear. If too many levels of hallucinations appear at once, it's game over. Now, let's talk about the real threats of this night: Springtrap and Dreadbear. Dreadbear can be seen on the cameras and will attack either one of your doors. Do note that you can close these doors and they each have their own power supply. But Dreadbear is unaffected by the doors and will break them down if they're in his way. You'll have to watch the cameras to see which door he will be attacking, and when you see him charging towards one, you will have to hide under the desk on the opposite side of the desk to where he is coming from in order to stay out of his line of sight when he enters your office. Eventually, he will leave and you'll be safe to come back out. Springtrap is a goofy little thing, to say the least. Springtrap will climb through any of 3 vents, which you can see on the cameras. 2 vents bring him to your respective office doors, and the third leads to the vent that is directly above you. If you see Springtrap climbing through a door vent, you will have to simply close the door to the side he's going towards. If you see him climbing through a vent that brings him to the top of your office, you'll need to quickly turn off the power to the office and hide under your desk. He'll drop down, and once he can't see you because the lights are off, he will leave. You got all that down? Good. Because we have a whole load more of fuck to talk about next. That being, how do we escape this room? Well, the goal is to open a tiny vent near the ground beneath the TV screen. To start, you'll want to check near the desk to look for a code. It's random every time, and where it appears next to the desk is also random every time, so have fun. Once you get the code, you head over to the TV screen and press developer mode, and then type in the code you found in your office. This lets you activate developer mode, which opens up a door on the wall revealing a token. Keep in mind, all of the threats are active at this time. Using the token, you pop that puppy into the big arcade machine in your office, which promptly starts up a game. That's right, while defending yourself from an onslaught of fuck, you will also have to play an entirely other game at the same time. The game in question, Save the Children, is really just a bunch of fetch quests. To start, you'll talk to Balloon Boy, who is fishing and says he needs some balloons. By the way, if you couldn't have guessed, all of the items that you'll be collecting in this minigame will be in a random location every time you play, because God hates you. When you bring the balloons back to Balloon Boy, he will give you one of the fish he caught. Then you need to find Old Man Consequences and give him the fish, since the pond he's fishing in doesn't have any. Once you give him the fish, he gives you a lily pad for some fucking reason. Don't question it. We don't have time to question it because I neglected to mention there's a fire spreading through the building as you're escaping, and if you take too long, it will reach your office and kill you. No, I'm not joking. Oh, and again, keep in mind all of the threats I mentioned are still pulverizing your butthole. Once you have the lily pad, you'll take it back to Balloon Boy's pond and use it as a bridge to talk to this fucking robot thing. The robot says its watch is broken, so fuck you, go look for a clock. Once you find the clock and bring it back to the robot, he gives you a penguin, I think is what that thing is. Then you take the penguin over to Lolbit, who gives you a key to unlock a gate, which then leads you to an area where you need to unlock another gate. Yes, this minigame is still happening right now. You spelunk into a cave and talk to some dude who thinks the cave is too dark. You then have to leave the cave and go look for a torch, head all the way back and give the torch to him. He will then give you a key to unlock the other gate, and when you do, you'll exit the area, leading to a William Afton cutscene where he goes sicko mode inside of his Springlock suit. And finally, you have to sit there and wait as the game reboots. Again, we're on a time crunch, so your butthole will probably be puckered at this point. Again, threats are still up the wazoo right now, so don't get comfortable. Once the system reboots, you'll get another 5-digit code which you can use to unlock a box on the office desk, which reveals a key. You then use the key on a keyhole in the fucking wall for some reason, and at this point, no matter how much time you have left, the game will start to count down from 6. Once the fire reaches your office, the small vent I mentioned at the beginning of this room will finally open, and you'll be free to crawl through it, but not before Springtrap lunges out and grabs your ankle with lust in his eyes and shit. You quickly close the vent and decapitate that bitch, and finally, you complete the room. Holy shit, this room gave me a panic attack and made me shart my pants. Shall we begrudgingly move on to the next room? I think so. Let's keep this gravy train rolling. Do you enjoy having headaches? If you do, this next room is for you. Let's go over it together. I'll hold your hand. This room is made up of 2 hallways, 2 windows, and a bunch of screens, a small elevator, and a life-size 7-foot-tall circus baby animatronic. The goal of this room is to put baby back together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first go over the threats this room has to offer. The first threat is Ballora. At times you will hear her music box begin to play. Depending on which side of the room you hear the music coming from, you'll need to go over to that side's hallway and press an electric shock button that will electrify the doorway, shocking Ballora and making her go away. If she gets in, I'm guessing you can figure out what happens next. Ballora is the easiest threat. What else is there? Well, the 2 other threats are Funtime Foxy and Funtime Freddy. Occasionally, you will hear a gurgling sound cue, letting you know something is wrong with either Foxy or Freddy. You will have to run over to the windows and turn on the light to their room to see where they are. Starting with Foxy, if you see him doing the thug shaker on stage, you just press his shock button, and he will go back to how he's supposed to be. Be careful though, if you shock him too many times for no reason, he'll eat your ass like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Freddy, on the other hand, is slightly different. His light button doesn't work. Similar to Sister Location, while looking at him, occasionally sparks will fly out of the wires in his room, briefly illuminating. In this small window of time, you'll be able to see where Freddy is located. He will slowly make his way towards the window, and if he gets too close, you guessed it, ass in his mouth, eating it like a cupcake. If you see Freddy getting too close for comfort, you press the tape symbol button, which will make Bon Bon tell Freddy to get the fuck back on stage. And he promptly will. Again, like Foxy, if you push the tape button too many times for no reason, It's time for the bite of 87 on your asshole. Now, back to putting baby back together to complete the night. You'll notice that baby is missing both arms and both legs. The first thing you'll need to do is find the baby chip hidden on the desk somewhere and plug it into the monitor. For some reason, we don't plug it into a computer, but I guess that's not really important now, is it? Once the monitor comes on, we need to call for baby's different pieces, starting with her arm. The general goal is to get each piece of her delivered and then fuse each of them to her body. Before I get to the fusing part of this process, let me bitch about the delivery process. So obviously, delivering the parts will take time, which isn't what we want because, as usual, we're on a timer here. And because of it, the devs thought it would be oh so funny to have some of the pieces come in broken. And once you put them on and try to fuse them, only then it will tell you it is broken and won't work. And you'll have to take the piece back off, return it, which also takes time, and then order and wait for another piece to be delivered. Why was this necessary, guys? What neuron fired off in your brain that made you think, how can I be Satan today? Anyways, let's talk about fusing, because this is really where the headache of this challenge comes into play. Starting with fusing the head, which for some reason wasn't already fused on, even though the challenge started with her head already being on her body. In order to fuse baby's body parts back to her torso, you have to complete a small minigame. For her head, it's basically just Simon Says, but with numbers instead of colors. But don't worry, the devs weren't just being nice and thinking about colorblind people. We'll get to that in just a minute. This is by far the easiest and least time-consuming part to fuse, but if you mess up a pattern once, you'll have to completely restart the head fusing process. Let's move on to her arms. The minigame for both arms are the same. The goal of this minigame is to divert power from the left side of the screen to the right. You do this by turning a bunch of 90-degree lines and 180-degree lines in order to make a consistent path from left to right. This sounds easy, but holy fucking shit, knowing you're on a time crunch and dealing with 30 pounds of dick in your ass at the same time definitely doesn't make this a smooth process. Do that for both arms and you're on to legs, the part that makes people like me want to die. In order to fuse the legs, you have to play a color matching game. You will see two grids of colors, one grid where you can change the colors and on the other you cannot. You have to copy it. Let's get the big elephant out of the room. If you're colorblind or deficient like I am, this challenge is borderline impossible. I'm lucky enough to not be completely colorblind or I would never have beaten this in my entire life. But not only that, but the grid each time has a missing square, as I'm sure you've noticed, but I'm also sure you've noticed that missing square on your side and the missing square on the side you're supposed to copy are in different locations. That's because they rotated the fucking grid. Talk about a headache, am I right? Maybe I'm just brain dead when it comes to this, but trying to comprehend where each color should go when it's rotated was just not a fun experience at all. I'm not even going to lie to you. But once you finally finish fusing all of baby's pieces back together, a voice will come over the speakers telling you that all of the animatronics have been deactivated, and that you should exit through the hall on your right. When you do, you'll be led to the sister location elevator. Getting inside, it will slowly descend and then stop. You'll hear something laughing at you for a while, and then the elevator will suddenly drop and you die. The end. Game over. Okay, not really. That's just the transition to the next room. Are you ready? Because I sure as fuck aren't. Why did we agree to come to this place? It makes no sense. How does this place even exist? I could have died a solid 276 times at this point, and we're not even done yet. Someone needs to get this place investigated by the FBI because this is some bullshit. What a waste of a Saturday, am I right? Anyways, let's move on. After laying on the floor for approximately 8 days, we finally wake up from the fallen elevator. We walk past a large window and see the characters we just went up against. After the events of the last room, these little tiny robot things apparently grabbed all of the characters to bring them to the scooping room. And this room is presumably that. While we look across the floor of once familiar corpses, the bane of my existence and the shit in my diaper emerges from the tangled mess of wires. Ennard. This guy is the single reason why it took me so long to make this video. Why it took me a month to beat this game. For most, it certainly wouldn't have taken this long, but for me, oh my lord, this next room will give me flashbacks like Charlie in the Trees for the next 5 decades. And possibly until I reach my grave. Remember the second room? How I mentioned I don't handle being chased very well? This room made me question if I would be able to continue making videos on this channel. or if I would have to jump ships to another genre to make review videos about. I'm not kidding, not even a little bit. I originally intended to beat this game on stream on Dxtr Black, and you can still see my first stream about this game where I gave up on Room 2. Well, for the people who tuned into that stream, no, I didn't give up. But you should also be grateful that I didn't stream this entire process because I spent tens of hours trying to beat this next room alone. Let me explain why. Room 5 is the epitome of everything I hate in a horror game. Literally all the way down to the last detail. I'll give you a warning right now. This is 100% a me problem and is totally my subjective opinion. So, the only threat in this room is Ennard. Thankfully, there aren't any more, but dear lord, Ennard is all it needs. In terms of where we are story-wise, the elevator crashing was definitely not intended to happen, as upon beginning this room, we don't get a monitor telling us what our goals are. This is cool as a passing thought, but it's not really cool when you stop to think that there is absolutely nothing to explain what it is I need to do to complete the challenge. Upon beginning, we're given a wind to power flashlight and some writing on the wall telling us to light up a solar panel using the flashlight. Now, I'm already going to pause real quick. We're being shown a new mechanic, the wind up flashlight and solar panel. Cool. Now tell me, do you suspect we need to light up solar panels ever again in this entire challenge? Or the entire game? I'm assuming you said yes, but you'd be completely wrong. No, there's not a single other solar panel in this entire game. So please, tell me, why the fuck were we shown this? Showing us the flashlight makes sense, but there were countless other ways to do it in a much better way than showing us another mechanic that is never used again. This is exactly like the gun in Muzi. But continuing, once we light the solar panel, a large door opens and the challenge truly begins. The overall goal of this challenge is probably the easiest we've seen so far. It's broken up into 5 distinct tasks. Step 1, find a crowbar. Step 2, use the crowbar to force open a drawer near Kyle's desk to get a keycard. Step 3, use Kyle's keycard to open a door, allowing you to turn a generator on that powers computer monitors throughout the room. Step 4, find all 3 computers and input 3 colored fuses into each. The fuses are conveniently placed in boxes right next to the computers, so I appreciate that. And step 5, go back to the generator and turn on the central power, which opens the door, allowing you to climb a ladder and beat the challenge. Sounds simple, right? Well, yes. It is simple, but now I need to talk about the problem. Ennard. Ennard will be patrolling the giant maze of a room the entire time you are performing these tasks. If he sees you, he will begin to chase you. If you get caught, you will lose all progress you've made throughout the challenge. Let me tell you another fact. Unlike every room in this game so far, this room ain't small. No, this room is very fucking large. I hate everything about life. Let me complain about some more stuff. If you are near Ennard, he will hear you and be alerted to you if you do the following. Wind up the flashlight. Makes sense. It's really loud. I can understand that one. If you run. Okay, yeah. I've seen that in other games before. Running is louder than walking is, and walking. That's right. If you move, period, while he is anywhere remotely close to you, he will hear you and start to chase you. What the fuck? And once he starts chasing you, there's only 2 ways to get him to stop. The devs must have been smoking crack and playing Dead by Daylight while they were designing this section, because one of the methods used to escape an Ennard chase is by knocking over wood pallets placed around the room. Quickly break the pallets and continue to chase you if you don't hop bottom out of there at light speed. What's the second way of escaping a chase? I hear you asking? Well, it's by stunning Ennard. How do you stun Ennard? I hear you asking again. That's a great question. I have no fucking idea. I'm not joking. I literally have no fucking clue on earth. How? On God's green fuck, you're supposed to stun Ennard. How do I know you can stun him? Well, every time you die, which, judging by the fact it took me borderline a month to beat this challenge, I did quite frequently, you will get a tip on the loading screen. One of these tips tells you that stunning Ennard will give you more time to run away than knocking over a pallet will. So I know you can, but the game doesn't elaborate on how to do that as far as I'm aware. So to this day, I still have no idea how to stun Ennard. I don't know what the hell the game is talking about. I'm stumped. But I'm not even close to done talking about this section of the game. No. I spent a fucking month on this. I can dedicate a few pages of my script to it. You can sit down and listen, I don't care if this video ends up being an hour long. You see, there is a very large, steaming hot, glaring issue with this challenge in specific. Since it's technically not a part of the canonical attraction, there's no tip screen at the beginning. But with no tip screen, there's no telling anyone fuck about fuck. So, as I said, there are 3 computers around the level. Each computer has a box of fuses with differently colored patterns on them right next to them. Each computer requires 3 different fuses. How do you figure out which fuses go where? Well, at first I looked at the colors of the wires going into the computer. I thought, maybe this will give me a hint as to what I'm supposed to do. So I tried to grab the fuses out of the box, but I couldn't. So then I thought, oh, maybe these aren't the fuses, and the actual fuses are randomly placed around the map. So I went to look. I looked, and I looked, and I looked, but I never found any fuses. Eventually, I died for probably the 48,000th time to see a tip appear on my screen. You won't be able to pick up fuses until you turn on the monitors. You didn't think to tell me that? You didn't think that was important information to give out earlier? This is why we need the fucking tip screen, asshole. But fuck me, whatever, sure. So then I started trying to figure out how to turn the monitors on. I tried seeing if I could press the buttons on the monitors, but that didn't work, so then I decided to try and find something else to do. Eventually, I found a note next to a door mentioning that Kyle leaves a keycard in his desk to open said door. Okay, cool. Something to do has just fallen into my lap. Let's go find Kyle's desk. Luckily for me, desks are in the same location every time you play, so we don't have to worry about those being randomized. After looking for a very long time, because again, I don't handle being chased well at all, it's like I fucking lock up and start freezing. I don't know what's wrong with me, I just can't handle it. So, most of the gameplay boiled down to me moving incredibly slowly and taking way more time than I ever needed to complete this challenge. But that's how I personally had to do this if I wanted to play it myself, which is also why the footage you're watching right now isn't mine. Thank you, Kono and Indie Fuel. I eventually find Kyle's desk to then find another note from Kyle mentioning that you need a crowbar to be able to open his drawer with the keycard in it. Fuck me. So, after searching for another 100 years, I find the crowbar on a desk and use it to open the drawer to get the keycard. 400 hours and 2,000 deaths later, I use the keycard to open the door and find the generator inside. Flip the switch and boom, the computers are now on. Now, 5,000 deaths later, I finally get to the point where I can pick up the fuses and match the correct fuses to the one shown on the screen. After 25,000 deaths, I managed to correctly match the fuses of all 3 computers. Keep in mind, every time I die, I have to completely restart this entire process, all the way back to shining the flashlight at the solar panel. I'm on the verge of death. So finally, I make it back to the generator to turn it on and finish this godforsaken challenge. And I do, expecting the door next to it to open. It doesn't. Come in real close for me. Come in real close. This fucking door needs a separate key that spawns randomly in the level. I'm going to clench my teeth together so hard that they shatter into a fine powder. This right here is what took me the longest. So finally, after 100,000 deaths, I finally get the key to the generator to unlock the door. Come in real close again for me, real close one more time. Take a guess what's in this room. Is it the exit to let me move on to the next challenge? No, it's just fucking lore. I didn't know this while I was playing. I don't watch videos about the games I play, so I had no idea what was behind this fucking door. I know that's 100% my fault, but dear God, when I tell you how fucking pissed I was when I finally figured out this after hours upon hours of attempts, I was fucking livid. I wish I was recording my attempts so I could show you my reaction. You wanna know what happened after a reasonable crash out in this room? Ennard fucking walked in and killed me, making me start from the beginning again. Once again, I wasn't recording. However, this exact same thing happened to Markiplier, so I'll show you footage of this happening to him instead.
Good. I was about to say, if that guy could have come in here, I would have been so mad. How could you ever get me in here?
The amount of vulgarities that emerged from my lungs at a speed of Mach 50 in that moment was astronomical, enough to shake trees and shatter the sound barrier. I was fucking livid. But again, I know full well that this entire section, this entire 4 pages of my script is an experience that only I have had. Nobody else on Earth struggled with this challenge as much as I did. Nobody in history has ever spent a calendar month pouring attempts into this section of a game that should only take 20 minutes to complete. I know it's a skill issue, and a very hard skill issue at that, but I could not, under any circumstance, neglect to mention how bullshit of an experience I had. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I eventually found the door to the generator, opened it, and climbed up the ladder into the next challenge of this godforsaken fuck-ass game. From one anxiety attack to another, let's talk about room 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's how many threats we have to talk about in this level. Awesome segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first threat we'll talk about is Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy can appear in one of 2 vents occasionally. When you hear or see him in one, you'll have to break your mouse and spam click a lever in the vent to blind him with a light more powerful than the sun. Every time you flash him, he gets slightly pushed back, which leads to you spending an infuriating amount of time spamming the fucking lever to make him go away. The next threat is Scrap Baby. As I'm sure you've noticed, we're locked inside a fenced area. On the outside of the fence is a forest, and occasionally you'll be able to see Baby limping her way out from between the trees towards your fence. When she gets to the fence, she'll hop that shit like an Olympic athlete and fuck your shit up. To stop her, you must go to this random screen in the wall and activate the repel system, which plays the most ear-piercing sound I've ever heard in my entire life. So I totally understand why that makes Baby go away. The final threat is Scrap Trap, who in my opinion is the stupidest looking FNAF character ever designed. You can see Scrap Trap sitting on a chair down a long hallway. You must watch him closely as he will slowly start to move until his head is eventually in an upright position. When it is, you must use the same screen you used for Baby, but instead close the door and use the call system to lure him to you. After waiting what will feel like an eternity, you will be able to hear him stand up from the chair and sprint like Usain Bolt towards the door, and pound on it like he's on speed. Then he will go back to the chair and you can open the door and turn off the call system. By the way, the call system is also the worst sound I've ever heard in my whole life. Thank you for asking. That may not sound all bad, but having to deal with all 3 of these fuckers and do the other bullshit we have to do, I promise it will become difficult to manage. So what is it we have to do? Well, the goal is to remove the chains from a fence gate so that we can open it. Simple enough. To start, you'll notice another screen different from the one used to defend yourself. On it, you'll find the opening minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator. You will need to complete 4 levels of this game, which in and of itself isn't a hard challenge, but when the music is pretty loud, listening for the other characters can be a problem, especially when Scrap Trap doesn't make any noise until it's already too late. After beating this game, you will unlock a prize that we can't access at this moment, so we'll get back to it in a second. Afterwards, you'll need to look around your surroundings to find 2 pieces of paper with a number ranging from 1 to 3 on them, accompanied by a silhouette of a FNAF character. You can use these pieces of paper to input a code into this little toy thing. I don't know what this thing is, if I'm being honest. You only need 2 pieces of the code because you can just brute force the last one. After getting the code correct, a key will emerge. Take that key and run down the hall and unlock a door to the right of Scrap Trap. This is personally where I think this level gets specifically hard, since we'll be spending most of our time in here now, meaning we won't be able to hear Scrap Trap and Molten Freddy. So if you forget to check on them, it's basically GG's. Inside this new room, we can finally obtain the prize we got from beating the Pizzeria Simulator minigame, a Faz coin. You'll notice a projector that's projecting a cut-up piece of paper on the wall. If you pull a lever on the same wall, this tiny little Freddy I can't remember the name of will try to read the projection. But he obviously won't be able to do so because it's only a small piece of a paper, you fucking idiot. Using the Faz coin, you can go back into Scrap Trap's room and insert it into Rockstar Freddy's stomach, and then press 3 buttons on his body in an order listed on a piece of paper. This makes sense, by the way. This will cause his mouth to open, revealing the other pieces of paper you need. Slap those bitches on the projector and put them together like a puzzle, which, side note, is a pain in the ass for no reason. The controls are super janky. Slap the lever with your big Coke can penis, and have bitch Freddy read it. When he does, a door next to Rockstar Freddy will open with some bolt cutters inside. You can use these bolt cutters to cut the chains off of the fence and escape this level. This level might not seem as difficult as some of the other ones have, and while none of these levels are particularly difficult in terms of what you literally have to do, all of the levels, and this one specifically, build up so much stress and really test your nerve control. After jumping down some weird looking cellar door, we enter a new room with a computer in it. It shows an error that it detected human movement. Obviously, we just entered the room, of course. While reading through the files on the computer that detail a plan to revive someone through our corpse. Another human detection error shows up on screen. Knowing that we haven't moved, we turn around and get our shit smacked up by Vanny and get knocked out. Fun fact, you can actually spot Vanny spying on you in almost every other level in the game if you're looking closely enough. Just something cool I thought I'd bring up. We wake up to Vanny dragging us into an unknown room. And rather than me explaining what happens next, I'd rather just show you. Afterwards, we walk through what appears to be memories of the Bite of 87 events, and the game comes to a close.
I've covered a lot of games made by the developers in the Five Nights at Freddy's Fanverse initiative. I've covered the fantastic Joy of Creation made by Nixon, the famous Five Nights at Candy's by Emil Mako, and I've covered the gorgeous One Night at Flumpty's by Groomer Jonachrome. For the most part, I've enjoyed all of these games, but there is still one game in the initiative I have yet to cover, Pop Goes by Kane Carter. Another incredibly well-known FNAF fan game with a lot of people having a sweet spot for it. Today, I'm here to find out why. Stick around because I've got a lot to say about it. As mentioned, Pop Goes was created by Kane Carter and was released to the public on June 26, 2016. Immediately, it got a lot of recognition, with FNAF fan games definitely being popular at the time, but it was still new to find a game that remotely matched the quality of the originals. And Pop Goes 100% did. The game shares lore in continuity to the official Five Nights at Freddy's games. However, it does retcon everything FNAF 4 onwards, meaning in order to understand the lore, we have to think only about FNAF 1 through 3. With that key detail out of the way, let's get all around the cobbler's bench and right into Pop Goes. A lot of FNAF fan games like to have an opening cutscene, but not Pop Goes. This game will already get you on your toes by not even showing you the standard newspaper, just jumping right into night 1, wiping its balls all over my forehead. Fantastic. Something you'll notice immediately is the way that Pop Goes handles the office. It's honestly probably the coolest office I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. It actually comes out of this game harder than you gooners come out of the closet. While in the office, which is hard to even call an office honestly, you will be able to look 360 degrees all around you, with 4 different directions to look in, all serving a different purpose. Although I will admit one of them doesn't really have any reason for existing, but we'll get into that later. Starting directly in front of us, we have our cameras, which are controlled by our phone, and some colorful buttons. Since this is where we'll be spending most of our time, I'll talk about this a bit later. Turning to our left, we can actually see one of the animatronics, and it's at this moment it becomes apparent that we are not in an office, but are rather just in a giant-ass room in the restaurant. This character's name is Blake the Badger, but he's harmless on this night, so as I've already said multiple times, we'll talk about him later. Turn left again to look behind us, and we'll be able to see the actual fucking stage where all the characters are. Holy shit, my butthole just puckered and my penis just retracted up inside of my body. We are literally constantly next to almost every animatronic in the entire game. You might think that'll make just about everything in this game useless, since they're already pretty much free to grab up on us, but as you'll learn throughout this video, these guys have a very, how should I say this, retarded thought process. Finally, turning once more to the left, we can see a window to the parking lot with a bird character standing outside. We'll talk about what he does later, but for right now, I want to talk about what actual purpose this window serves. On the bottom of the screen, you will see a panic meter. Naturally, throughout the night, it will rise, and looking at animatronics will cause this panic meter to rise faster. In order to make it decrease, you'll need to look to the right at the window. I guess looking outside makes you remember how much you enjoy touching grass. Just kidding. Being outside is scary, and it's summer right now, so it's really fucking hot. I'd rather die than go out there. Fun fact, as I'm writing this script, I'm not wearing a shirt because of how blazing hot it is, even though it's only 9:45 p.m. What kind of bullshit is this? Why is it so goddamn hot where I live? This shit is ass. Oh, and by the way, as I'm recording this, it's currently 11:48 p.m. and it's somehow gotten even hotter. Also, by the way, put your dick back in your pants. You're not going to see me shirtless. And stop imagining it too. I already know how weird you fucking freaks are. Yes, I read the comments. Behave. Anyways, if your panic meter increases all the way, you'll be unable to do literally anything. That includes turning to look in any direction, and Pop Goes will very quickly dig in your butt. Want to hear a really cool fact about this? Turns out I'm actually the most retarded person on the face of the planet Earth. The phone guy explicitly describes that if we're feeling panicked to look outside. I swear to you, I had no fucking idea that the window to our right was a window to the outside. I knew it was a window, but for some reason I couldn't tell that it was to the outside of the building. I thought it was just another room inside the building, and I think the reason I thought that was because the animatronic could be seen through it, and I didn't think that they'd place an animatronic outside. But that still doesn't make sense, because what I thought you had to do was look at camera 10, which is a camera out in the parking lot. While this does seem to decrease your panic very slowly, I thought it was going to be impossible to beat this game because of how slowly it dropped. Again, keep in mind, I can see the crow animatronic in this camera, and it took borderline until night 3 for me to notice that yes, that window is outside, and by looking out of it, my panic will decrease a fuck ton faster. It looks like the panic meter don't exactly work very well though, bro. Like, look, I keep fucking jumping back up and shit. What am I supposed to do with this panic meter, bro? It like doesn't go down consistently at all. Dude, this is bullshit. What the fuck are you supposed to do? That's not possible. What the hell is that bullshit? What? What's the point of turning except to see? Like, what's the point of this? Like this area. Wait, that's the... Oh! I'm retarded. This is the fucking parking lot. He means literally... Guys, I'm actually fucking retarded. Holy shit, guys. I'm a fucking idiot. Oh my god. That has to be actually the fucking stupidest thing I've ever done in my whole life. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about our camera system. Looking at it at a first glance may seem a bit intimidating, but this game actually does a fantastic job at slowly introducing new mechanics. It's actually probably better at this than any other FNAF game I've ever played before. Let's just focus on what needs to be focused on during night 1 and ignore everything else until it becomes relevant. Obviously, you can switch through the cameras like any FNAF game, and the cameras in this game use no power. In fact, this game doesn't even have power to begin with, which I think is something we can all appreciate. The only other thing on the cameras we need to worry about is the room shutdown button. This button does exactly what you think it does, temporarily shuts down the power to a specific room. You'll notice you can only use this button on cameras that have this weird device on them, and if you can't tell what this is, it's a 3D printer. Why are there 3D printers here? Well, canonically, I'm pretty sure it's because the kids that come to the restaurant can print out their own animatronics or something like that. I don't really know. I was more focused on the phone guy talking about his boring ass life. I wasn't really paying attention to the actual story of the game very much. Where these 3D printers come into play during gameplay is when we talk about our boy, Pop Goes the Weasel. Yes, we are actually introducing the main character of the game on night 1, something quite a few FNAF games don't like to do until later nights. Pop Goes will leave his stage and head towards any room with a 3D printer, which by the way you can actually turn around and watch him leave via walking through the very room you're sitting in. Remember how I said the characters in this game make some pretty retarded decisions? Yeah, this is one of them. If Pop Goes' goal is to kill me, why doesn't he just do it? He's literally directly behind me. It would not be hard at all. In fact, the only time he does kill you is when your panic meter gets too high. So, if he doesn't kill you himself, how is he a threat? Great question, and one I'm going to answer because no shit, it'd be a pretty shitty review if I didn't explain anything. Once Pop Goes enters a room with a 3D printer, he will attempt to print out a piece of a character called the Black Rabbit. It's literally just Shadow Bonnie from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In order to stop him, you will have to shut down the room he's in before he prints it. This will make the printer turn off and will make him leave to go find another one. After a few seconds, the power to the room will automatically come back on, so you don't have to worry about losing sight of the room forever. Pop Goes is completely relentless. The moment you shut down one room, it won't be long until he attacks another, which actually leads to a constant pressure gameplay loop. Typically something I would find unfun, but again, this game actually does it incredibly well, and I think it has everything to do with how well it introduces new mechanics. But back to Pop Goes. If you don't shut down the room fast enough, he will print out a piece of the Black Rabbit and walk back to the office. If you turn around, you can actually catch him placing the piece he printed out on the table behind you. If he prints out every piece, the Black Rabbit will become active and immediately kill you. I personally never died to the Black Rabbit, which goes to show either how easy this game is or how much fun I had playing it that I was able to find a rhythm. I should briefly mention how the phone calls in this game work, since they're also quite a bit different from most I've seen. Unfortunately, the phone guy is British. I know that should be given a warning in and of itself, but let's try to move past that tragedy. After getting the typical phone guy spiel, you're given 3 options for things to ask him, and whatever you choose will actually give you some branching dialogue, giving a small bit of replayability to each night. One option usually elaborates on a mechanic, another usually does some lore dumping, and the final is typically just some silly fun. Small details, I'm telling you. They're what make me appreciate games the most. But after beating night 1 in typical FNAF game fashion, we're tossed into a post-night 8-bit minigame to do some lore dumping. Except this game actually does it a little different than other games do. Each minigame takes place in the same area. This weird red maze-ass area. I have no idea what the floor is supposed to be made of, but let's ignore that. In this minigame, we play as Stone the Crow. This is the same character that stands outside of your window in the parking lot, by the way. Each character you play as in this minigame will have a different path you need to follow, and a different item you can interact with. This is the route you need to take as Stone. Following this path will lead you to a balloon boy chained up. Once you see him, the minigame ends. However, if you want to get one of the special endings in this game, there is something you need to do first. In each minigame, you will be able to find a secret character named Simon. Once you find him, you will be transformed into what I'm going to call a purified version of the character. Once purified, if you head over to the balloon boy, instead of the game just ending, you'll actually be able to free him from his shackles. This will happen in every minigame, just with different paths and characters. Additionally, if you interact with Balloon Boy's hat before you reach his room, a short cutscene will play. And by cutscene, I mean a single fucking drawing. But hey, that's cool, I suppose. As far as I'm aware, looking at these drawings doesn't aid in getting you a special ending, just some fun extra lore to find. Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, except they both do the exact same thing at the exact same time in the exact same way, so they're basically only one character. Those characters being Saffron and Sarah the Squirrels, aka this game's gooning material. Get your Jergens out, or just use your hand if you have foreskin because your parents don't love you. Saffron and Sarah, like Pop Goes, can be seen on stage directly behind you. They too would prefer to do something incredibly complicated and retarded rather than just blow your back out from behind like any normal attacker would do in this situation. They introduce a new mechanic, your vents. As I'm sure you could guess from me saying that, these two travel through your vents in an attempt to drop down on you and sit on your face, which is exactly why I never stopped them. Anyways, you can toggle your vent camera on a majority of cameras around the building. Think of the map as a big roundabout these two have to go around. They start in camera 8, then go to 6, then 3, then 1, then 2, then 5, then 7, and finally arrive at your office. So you have plenty of time to stop them. But be warned, once they travel into a new vent, they will never go back under any circumstance. So really make sure you stay on top of them. Personally, I'm into femdoms, so I prefer to be on the bottom of them, but that's really not important. When you spot them in your vents, you must turn on your vent heater, which will cause lasers of all things to shoot down in the vent, blocking their path. The phone guy tells you that these lasers will stay on for 1 minute, except this game has a crazy twist, and the twist is that he fucking lied. The lasers actually only stay on for 9 seconds. Not 10, 9. Fuck me, I didn't want to see a nice round number anyways. Don't fret, you don't actually have to keep track and count in your head, as on your cameras a heat symbol will appear whenever your lasers are active, meaning that as long as you know how to use your eyes, you'll always be able to tell whether or not your lasers are on without constantly having to toggle vent to check. Kane could have easily not put this heat symbol in the game, and without changing any mechanics, it would have made it a fuckload more difficult. But Kane cares about video game balancing, and I really respect him for that. If the squirrels get all the way through the vent, they will appear in the vent directly above your head. If you look up, you'll be able to see them peeking down at you. Much like Pop goes, these girls actually never attack you. Instead, what they do is snatch up your phone like a frat boy snatches up Easy Cooter. Obviously, without your phone, you won't be able to switch cameras, meaning Pop goes will be free to build up the black rabbit and you'll be done for. However, it's much more likely that your rapidly climbing panic meter will get you killed first. Anyways, on to the post-night minigame. This time we play as Saffron and we're tasked with finding Toy Freddy. Very similar to last night, we can find Simon, become purified, and free Toy Freddy from his shackles. Oh yeah, and additionally can view another picture with some loud-ass music playing as well. Lore or something! Also, by the way, here's the path you need to take. Night 3 introduces one new threat, Blake the Badger. However, I first want to talk about a threat I haven't mentioned thus far, Stone the Crow. He actually has 2 different attacks, one that becomes active early in the game and one that doesn't become active until a later night. Both of his attacks are actually the most threatening and annoying out of any character in the entire game. Crazy how one character can have multiple ass-erupting problems that I hate. His early attack has him just be an annoying prick. He will occasionally appear on your cameras and block your entire view. This prevents you from seeing Pop Goes, which is obviously not great. But if that wasn't enough, when you look at him, your panic meter actually increases way faster than normal. And want to know the coolest part? The higher your panic, the more commonly he appears on your cameras. That's a fucking wombo combo if I've ever seen one before. Holy shit. Leave my poor anus alone. It's had enough. In order to make him stop appearing on the cameras, you obviously have to lower your panic. Ironically, by staring at him out in the parking lot. Let's just pretend like that makes sense. Anyways, now I can talk about Blake the Badger, a character who is literally just fun. As I mentioned previously, Blake can be seen directly to your left. This, by the way, is the direction that is pretty much useless to look in. Along with seeing Blake, you can also see the door to the server room in this direction. If you look this way long enough, you'll see Blake walk into this server room. You can view the server room on your cameras where you can see Blake present. This camera is one of the reasons why watching him move real time doesn't matter, because you'll be checking the cameras consistently anyways. Blake has you play Simon Says. Hey, Simon! Like the guy in the minigames. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Once Blake is in the server room, he will set the monitor inside to a certain color. On your desk, you will see 5 different buttons, each with a differently colored circle on them. What you need to do is click the circle that's the same color as the monitor in the server room, and then press the Blake button next to your monitor to call him over so we can check if you chose correctly. When you call him, by the way, he will literally come right up to you. If you turn to the left, you will see him staring right at you, which kind of startled me the first time I saw it. If you got the colors right, he won't attack you and will go back to minding his own business. Get it wrong and you're obviously fucked. Want to hear another reason why looking to the left is not worth it? Well, if Blake happens to be there because he's checking on your color, if you look at him, your panic meter will increase drastically. So there is literally never a good reason to look to your left, ever, so just don't. Night 3's post-night minigame has you play as Sarah. I'm sure you can already guess what you need to do. Find Simon, become purified, and find my wife Toy Chica and free her from her shackles, and then let her use those shackles on me so she can have her way with me. But let's leave Chica and I alone while you guys move on to Night 4. Oh yeah, and here's the path. Night 4's new threat is Stone the Crow. While yes, I've already established his camera blocking threat, that's not the only threat he has, as I've already mentioned. This is the night where his much more annoying problem arises. If you are to look out of the window for too long, Stone will turn his head towards you and, I'm not joking, make the most ear-piercing, skull-fucking degrading screech I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm not lying. It's actually the loudest noise in the whole game, and it scared the fuck out of me every single time I heard it. Oh, for fuck. My goddamn ears, bro. When he turns his head at you, your panic meter will increase faster than anything else that causes it to increase. Like, I'm talking fast as fuck. Usain Bolt type shit. Obviously, turning away will cause him to stop staring, and you'll be able to look at him again to decrease your panic that he so rudely increased. This does bring up an interesting dilemma and will force you to come up with a new strategy when playing. You know that looking out the window for too long will cause him to look at you, but you also need to keep your panic empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. So you need to figure out a proper way to both deal with Popgoes, the squirrels, and Blake, while also looking out of the window frequently enough to not cause Stone to look at you, while also keeping your panic meter completely empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. Because once your pattern breaks, it will be very difficult and stressful to get yourself back on track. Night 4's post-night minigame has you play as Blake. Here's the path you have to follow to get to Mangle, but remember to find Simon and purify yourself first. I'll never understand the attraction some people have to Mangle. I don't even see how sex with her would be fun. She's a fucked up mess of wires. Even if you could figure out how to get it done, you'd borderline have to be a contortionist in order to not get yourself injured while doing the deed. Anyways, on to Night 5. Night 5 doesn't introduce any new threat, just being a harder version of Night 4, so I'll use this time to talk about Simon and how he appears in the nights. That's right, Simon himself does appear in each night, however, I never saw him throughout my playthrough, which you can find on my second channel, Dxtr Black, and that's because of how specific finding him is. Each night he will appear in a certain room at a certain time, only for a few seconds, which is why I never saw him. When you find him, you will need to click on one of your Simon Says buttons that corresponds to the color of his eyes. When you do, he will say something to you. I guess it being Simon Says wasn't a coincidence after all. On Night 1, he will appear in the arcade's vent camera at the 526th second of the night. That's right, it's actually that specific. His eye color will be red and he will say the following.
Simon Says.
On Night 2, he'll appear in the birthday room camera at the 116th second. His eyes will be pink and he'll say the following.
Keep finding me. I'll tell you everything.
On Night 3, he'll appear in the parking lot camera on the 472nd second. His eyes will be blue and he'll say this.
Oh, brother. He must be so fond of him.
On Night 4, he'll appear in the staff room at the 342nd second of the night. His eyes will be yellow and he'll say the following.
Do you think you know who he is? The truth is behind this door.
And at Night 5, he'll appear in the hallway camera at the 273rd second of the night. His eyes will be green and he will say this.
He doesn't want to remember. We can help him tomorrow.
Overall, a pretty cool bit of extra lore in a very fun and interactive way. Again, I'm in love with little details like this. Also, here's another fun fact. If you stare at Simon's screen in the extras menu for too long, your game will crash, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, onto the post-night minigame. Here you play as Popgoes. Here's the path you have to take to find the worst FNAF character ever designed, Toy Bonnie. And as always, don't forget to find Simon and purify yourself. God, I fucking hate Toy Bonnie. He's the main reason why Five Nights at Freddy's 2 sucks as much dick and balls as it does. I know people have found a way to make 1020 mode not random, but fuck you. He's still a bag of dicks. Night 6 once again adds no new threats, just being the hardest non-custom night in the entire game, really amping up the game's difficulty. I want to talk about two things during this night. This game does probably the best job I've seen at making a challenging experience without being frustrating, janky, or awkward. This night is definitely hard, requiring you to be precise with your mouse, quick with your thinking, and requiring a lot of nerve control throughout. But never throughout my playthrough did I feel like the game was unfair or that there was too much RNG involved. This game is a perfect balance of challenging and engaging. I've truly never seen another FNAF game pull it off as well as this game has. Additionally, Simon can be found on this night as well. I didn't talk about it last night because the way you find him in this night is without a doubt one of the coolest things in the whole game. He'll appear in the station on the 273rd second of the night. You might be wondering what the station is, and the station is literally the room you are sitting in. Simon will appear on the table directly behind you. He leans in so close you can feel his breath on the nape of your neck. It might turn some people on, but it personally makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Anyways, his eyes will be white and he'll say the following.
He wants to save her, and I will make his wish come true. Thank you, Strix.
If you've done everything correctly in the post-night minigame so far, you'll be put into the 6th night post-night minigame where you play as the Black Rabbit. Finding Simon, you'll realize he looks different, appearing to be glitching as the purple guy, and upon purifying, you seem to become Spring Bonnie, implying that either Simon has been William Afton the whole time, or that Popgoes has been trying to construct William Afton the whole time. Continuing forward, you find a man and kill him. This man being Fritz, or Jeremy Fitzgerald, the phone guy who's been talking to us throughout the nights. Hold the fuck up. The phone guy has been Jeremy Fitzgerald, aka the person we play as in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again, keep in mind that anything that happens in the official FNAF games from the 4th game and beyond are not canon in Popgoes. Throughout the game, Fritz talks about an accident he had at Freddy's, never going into specific detail as to what it was. I'm going to take a guess he was either the Bite of 87 victim or the Bite of 83 victim, since he also mentioned that he used to work for Freddy's. You might think that it can't be the Bite of 87 because we already know that that was a child, and Fritz mentions that the accident happened when he was a teenager. But again, remember that we learned it was a child in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which isn't canon to this game, so it could be up in the air. If you have a better idea, or you know I'm wrong as fuck, let me know in the comments. I love reading your guys' corrections. During the last night of this game, Fritz asks us a question. Would we forgive someone who did something terrible, given that we've known the person for a long time? Then, instead of getting to ask him a question at the end of the call like every other night, we're instead only given the option of selecting yes or no, with no response given after our answer. I'm going to assume that this hypothetical question is about William Afton after he did what he did to the children. Fritz mentions earlier in the call that he feels like William probably had a good reason to do what he did. Fritz knew William and didn't want to believe he killed the kids with no good reason. I think he asks us that question in an attempt to make himself not feel so alone in wanting to forgive him. After killing Fritz in the final minigame, one last cutscene plays out. We're back in our office and we watch as Simon approaches us and stares deep into our eyes, making us fall in love. No, I'm kidding. I mean, he does stare at us, but I highly doubt it's for that reason. And with that, we get the grave ending. As far as I'm aware, this game's version of a true ending. And that's where Popgoes comes to a close. Overall, I actually love this game. Originally going into it, I was nervous that this video was going to be another hit piece like Jolly, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be a very enjoyable experience. I truly think that this game has the best difficulty balancing of any FNAF game I've ever played. Each mechanic feels solid and has great synergy with every other mechanic, without having the game feel unfair and overwhelming while still providing a satisfying challenge. The story isn't too convoluted, and there's not a lot of garbage hoops to jump through to be able to experience it, which for someone like me, who dreads learning the lore in games, can really appreciate. Because of all of these reasons, I'm placing Popgoes in my top 10 favorite FNAF games of all time. I honestly really enjoyed my time with this game, and I highly recommend all of you give it a try.
What is up, my devious little hobgoblins? A while back, I made a video on Five Nights at Wario's, and a lot of you really liked it. So much so that it is one of the most popular videos on this channel. I appreciate it. A lot of you have been asking me to cover the second game in the series, so as a token of my appreciation, I figured, why not? So sit back and listen to me, a 20-year-old grown adult, talk about a PNG game. Quick small note before we start, I recommend you watch the first video, not that you won't understand this one if you don't, but just the way that I talk about this game will reference things that I talked about in my last video, so I just recommend you go watch it, but you do not have to. Five Nights at Wario's 2, similar to Five Nights at Wario's 1, who would have thought, begins with a cutscene. Our character is walking through the woods towards his new job at WarioWare Inc. So right off the bat, I don't think that this company is the same company from Wario's 1. Upon loading in, we're greeted to our new office. I will say, this office looks marginally better than the previous one. I can actually tell what everything in this office is, so that's a plus. This time, we also have a second room that has a generator inside that we will need to use to prevent us from dying. I failed to mention this in my last Wario video, but your power drains so fast in the first game, it's not even funny. So I appreciate this addition. We also, again, have our cameras as usual. This game, however, introduces a mechanic that I actually think is really cool. Rather than having lights to see our doorways, instead we're working in a thunderstorm, and every once in a while lightning will strike, which lights up the entrances to our office for a brief moment. I think this addition is really cool and super unique. Night 1, like the first game, only has Wario and Waluigi active. The generator behind you acts as a music box the whole time, but the back room also serves another purpose. It also acts like a mask from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. There are no doors in this game. Characters will make their way to your office and come inside to attack you. When they attack, you need to quickly duck into the back room and make no noise. This means that while you're hiding from a character that's attacking, you cannot fill your generator until they leave. I think it's super interesting how they combined both of these mechanics in the same way. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I always thought that seeing the warning symbol telling you the music box was going to run out was really frustrating more than tense. However, in this game, when you're tight on time to fill the generator and you have to hide, you have to sit there and watch it go down, knowing that you could technically fill it. I feel like this addition actually makes the same exact situation feel more tense than the original. Night 1 isn't too difficult, so let's move on to Night 2. Night 2 introduces a brand new character, Toad. Toad works as the Foxy character that the first game should have had. On this night, the power to the lights in the tool room stopped working, meaning that we can no longer use the cameras to see what's there. Kind of. When the lightning strikes, that camera is still illuminated for a small amount of time like our doorways. This room is where Toad is. Like Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, Toad has multiple camera states. Once he disappears from the camera, you need to hide in the back room. You'll know it's safe to come back when you see this. As unscary as Toad looks, I think the idea of him peering in at you is actually pretty frightening. Something I've noted about Toad is that when he attacks, you don't need to be quiet. Even if he's peeking into the back room, you're still free to charge up the generator, which can definitely be a large help on those later nights. It's also really easy to tell when he's charging, as intense music will start to play before he arrives. Aside from Toad, Night 2 is all the same. I think Toad adds an extra level of difficulty to this game that the first one desperately needed, and I appreciate the successful attempt at doing so. Night 3 adds 2 new characters. The first is Mario. Back from the first game, Mario will appear in your back room. He will slowly rise from the bottom of the screen. If you stay in the back room for too long, he'll kill you. Super simple mechanic, but since every night the generator goes down faster and faster, you'll end up finding yourself needing to stay back there longer, meaning in later nights, Mario will become a real threat. The other character this night adds is Bowser. Bowser works just like Wario and Waluigi, the only difference is he attacks from the window rather than the door. When he enters your office, all you need to do is hide in the back room. Between these two, I think Mario is the more interesting character because, no fucking shit, his mechanic is actually unique. Night 4 adds another character from the first game, Peach. I'm not going to spend too long on this night because there's not a whole lot to note. Peach works exactly the same as Wario, Waluigi, and Bowser. She moves around the cameras and will attack from the door. When she does, just hide in the back room and don't make noise until she leaves. Simple and boring, I'm having an aneurysm. But this is a super early fan game, so for what it's worth, this game was technically revolutionary for its time. There aren't any new characters on Night 5, however, Mario does get an upgrade. Now, alongside being in the back room, keeping you from staying there for too long like in the first game, he'll also be in your main office and move through 3 different states before standing in your room. When he does, you'll have to hide in the back room. In all honesty, I think this is pretty stupid when you look at it logically for a second. I know you shouldn't do that in FNAF games, but fuck you, I'm gonna do it. Mario is already in the back room, and he clearly knows that you hide there. He even forces you to not hide there for too long. But now you have to hide from him. And I'm supposed to pretend like that makes any sense at all. I could keep complaining, but we have 2 more nights of this game to get through. After beating Night 5, a small cutscene plays. WarioWare got a call from an unknown source, and apparently we have to go in for another night. An end screen shows, again with another question mark, but this time Mario can be seen in the corner for an unknown reason. Sorry not sorry if that startled you. Night 6 adds nothing, it just makes the characters more difficult. As my good friend Blue Links would say, boo! Night 7, however, does add something. I bet you will never in a million years guess what it is. Five Nights at Wario's 2 breaks new grounds and adds another fucking music box. Why? Why do we need another music box? It makes no sense. This has to be one of the laziest bits out of any game ever released to this planet. No, this fucking solar system. Sorry. I lost my temper. That's the only new thing that's added to this night. The characters are harder again, surprise, surprise. After beating Night 7, we get a screen showing a newspaper, which I will get into later when we discuss the lore that was released in this game. Five Nights at Wario's 2 is much better than the first one, improved graphics, and semi-improved game mechanics. As much as I hate the addition of a second music box, at least this time we're required to use the cameras. Moving on to the story that this game gives us. Again, I'll be going over the contents of the phone call and trying to extract as much information as I can from them. On Night 1, we're introduced to the new phone guy, who happens to be voiced by Dawko. We're told that in this game, rather than working at a factory again, we're working at a place called WarioWare Inc. This business specializes in making video games. I'm not entirely sure why a place like this would need a night guard, but let's try not to think realistically here. Dawko explains how employees claim to be seeing figures. He explains that he himself has dealt with hauntings before and that it wasn't fun. I want you to put this small comment into the back of your mind. There's not a whole lot of info given on Night 2. Dawko explains to us that entities move faster in the dark. I feel like this implies that the phone guy knows exactly what it is that we're dealing with. Night 3, however, we get some juicy lore drops. Dawko tells us that the building we're in caught fire years ago, and that the only casualty was a large dragon-like creature. Obviously, this is referring to Bowser. Bowser was buried under our office, and we're told that after this fire, Wario, the man who started the WarioWare company, started up a fast food factory. This is huge. This lets us know at what point in the timeline we're in. Where we're at, Wario has already made the fast food factory, and I feel it's safe to assume that the events of the first game have already taken place. If I had to make an early assumption, I'm going to guess that the phone guy's hauntings were at the fast food factory, and I'm going to take the guess that he is the one that we played as in the last game, but that could be incorrect. That's just what I'm going with for now. On Night 4, my theory starts to seem more believable. Phone guy tells us he's been in our position before. He said he worked 6 nights before the place he worked in got shut down for events. This lines up perfectly with the events of Five Nights at Wario's 1, as we played through 6 canonical nights before the main game ended. Near the end of the call, he also stated that it's always important to have a night guard on the first week. I truthfully have no idea why he said this. Why would only the first week be an important time to have a night guard? Maybe the first week of opening makes the spirits of the workers upset because they want what they started to remain dormant after they passed? I have no fucking idea. But hopefully we'll be able to get that question answered. Night 5 has no lore drops, but we do start noticing something a bit odd about the phone guy. In this phone call, he seems less friendly and slightly less focused. He has a lot more ums in his speech, and this phone call is a lot shorter than the others. He seems upset that we've made it to the end of the week and that we get to relax on the weekend. And instead of the friendly goodbyes and good lucks that we've been used to on the previous nights, this time we're greeted with just a cold goodbye. Something is definitely wrong with him. I'm just not sure what yet. At the end of Night 5, a screen full of text tells us that a mysterious call was made, a call with a request. We're not told what the request is, but this call is seemingly the reason why we had to go in for a 6th night. On Night 6, we get another phone call from Dawko. The character's name isn't Dawko, by the way. I just think Dawko's voice acting is really funny and kind of bad, so I'm just calling the phone guy by the voice actor's name. I'm just a little silly, some could say, a little goofy, a little diabolical. Anyways, he reveals that the phone call was made by him. He doesn't give a reason as to why, but he did say that something tonight made them in need of a night guard. He tells us that he wants us to play a game with them. When I first heard this, I was a little confused, but I'm pretty sure he's implying that he is one of the characters that we're fighting off, but I'm not sure which one he would be. The only new characters are Toad and Bowser, but I don't see why either of those would make sense. He reiterates that he's gone through this too at a different location many years ago, and that now it's our turn. I still get the feeling that he was the security guard from the first game, but now with the information that he might be one of the characters coming after us, that theory starts to crack. He tells us that he's locked the doors to the building and will be forcing us to stay here for the night tomorrow as well. This night is also the night where we learn our character's name, that being Thomas. Clearly, whoever the phone guy is must know us. We just have to figure out how. Night 7 is the final main night of the game, and there's plenty of interesting information in the phone call. Phone guy tells us that someone has been waiting for us, before seemingly passing the phone to them. Then we hear some tangled mess of sound. Reversing it reveals the following, quote, "It's time to end you. You'll play the looping game with no ends. You cannot hide. We will find you. We will locate you. We will do the same thing to you as we did to him. Soon you will be one of us. You cannot run anymore. Thomas Taylor." End quote. Alright, a few things to unpack here. First of all, I have no idea who this could be talking to us. I feel like it'd make most sense for it to be Wario, but I could be wrong. The voice says they will do the same thing to us as they did to him. I'm not sure who him could be either. My first guess was the phone guy, Dawko, and that would make sense considering the voice said that we would become one of them, just like the phone guy seems to be one of them. After completing Night 7, we're greeted with the newspaper clipping I mentioned earlier, which reads, WarioWare Inc., owner on the run. Yesterday, the owner of WarioWare Inc. escaped as the police tried to bring him to the station. Quote, "I heard someone screaming from the factory, so I called the police," end quote, says witness Matt Parker. The police arrived shortly after, only to be met by a man storming out of WarioWare Inc., with signs of scars in his face. As he ran, he dropped the phone he was carrying that contained a bloody hand mark. The police immediately followed his footsteps, trying to catch up with him. Shortly after, the newly hired Thomas Taylor came out of the factory too, claiming he had been locked inside the building for 24 hours. The police continued their search the whole night. The man has yet to be found. So, from this clipping, we know that the phone guy is the owner of WarioWare Inc. I actually have an idea of who he could be. If you haven't noticed, Luigi is absent from this game. He is never seen. I get the idea that the phone guy could be Luigi, but if that's the case, that throws the idea of the phone guy being the security guard from the first game out the window, because obviously Luigi was an active character in that game. By the way, I'm very aware that there's a video made by the creator of the Wario games going over all the lore. I just think it's much more fun to try to figure it out myself as I go along. But that's the end of Five Nights at Wario's 2, as I can tell. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below, and if you think it's better than the first one, which should be a unanimous yes, by the way. In the last video, I asked you all what your favorite mechanic from any Five Nights at Freddy's or Five Nights at Freddy's fan game was, and why. My favorite comment is this one by Joker of Spades. Congratulations on the second favorite comment, by the way. They chose Dee Dee from Ultimate Custom Night, which threw me off at first, but after listening to what they had to say, They explained that they like Dee Dee because out of nowhere Dee Dee will appear adding a random character, and it will be up to you to figure out who it is fast enough to be able to begin dealing with them while also dealing with the chaos of every other animatronic. And that actually made me think, and I kind of agree, it's a really cool mechanic, and I think more things should be done like that in future FNAF games. The question of this video is, would you like to see me cover another FNAF series or FNAF fan game series from start to finish? And if so, which one would you like to see? With the question of the video being asked, I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!